Good morning and welcome to the 2025 Hiring Our Heroes Military Spouse Employment Summit. Please welcome to the stage the Director of Military Spouse Programs, Brian Alvarado.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. It's lovely to see you all. Well, good morning and welcome to the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, the home of Hiring Our Heroes. Hello. On behalf of Eric Eversole, the president of Hiring Our Heroes, and the entire Military Spouse Program team, we are honored to have each of you here at the 9th annual Hiring Our Heroes Military Spouse Employment Summit. We are excited to welcome leaders from across the private sector, government officials, and members of the military community, all committed to building the future where military spouses can thrive in the workforce. This summit is designed to map the path from hiring military spouses to retention strategies to building truly thriving workplaces. And we'll hear today from the voices who are making that future a reality. With that, I am proud to kick off today's incredible event by introducing a colleague and a friend, someone whose leadership has redefined what is possible in this space. Please help me welcome the Senior Vice President of Hiring Our Heroes, Elizabeth O'Brien.
Good morning, and thank you so much, Brian, for that wonderful introduction, and welcome to everybody in the room. So honored to welcome folks for our 9th annual Military Spouse Employment Summit. When we started this 9 years ago, I'm not sure that we could have ever imagined what it would grow into and the impact. This year, under the banner of a theme that couldn't be more urgent, more necessary, or more powerful, Forging America's Talent. It is always an honor to welcome our military-connected community to this building, where policy meets business and where solutions are not just discussed, but they are designed, they are tested, and they are launched into the world. There is no greater intersection of opportunity than what happens right here at the Chamber. And today, this space belongs to each of you, to the military spouses, to the employers, and to the leaders, the innovators who are shaping the workforce of tomorrow. Let me begin by extending our heartfelt thanks, first and foremost, to our Hiring Our Heroes team, to our Senior Director of Military Spouse Employment, Melissa Sanderson. You guys are the best in the business, and I'm honored to be on your team. To our partners who power this movement forward, thank you. To our presenting sponsor, T-Mobile, your unwavering leadership and drive to create economic opportunity for military spouses is second to none. To our platinum sponsors, Boeing, Booz Allen Hamilton, CareSource, Comcast NBC Universal, Deloitte, Fiserv, Leidos, Lockheed Martin, USAA, and to our gold sponsors, HCA, Capital One, and Lowe's. And to our supporting sponsors, CSX and Organized Q, we thank you. But let me pause and say this. It fills my heart to see a military spouse-founded business like Organized Q standing proudly among the most powerful brands in the world. That is what progress looks like, and that is what possibility feels like. Yesterday was certainly a day to remember. We hosted our international roundtable with representatives from 10 countries, from Guyana to North Macedonia to Ukraine to the Czech Republic. The perspectives were diverse, the challenges are unique, but the message was clear. Military spouse employment is not just a United States of America issue, it is a global imperative. Whether it's economic mobility, retention within the armed forces, or national security, military spouse unemployment and underemployment has ripple effects across borders and beyond generations. And in that shared struggle, we have found global unity, a coalition of nations that are willing to lift each other up, forge solutions together, and making the world smaller, stronger, and more connected. And speaking of those taking bold steps forward this week, we welcomed over 50 military spouses to our Amplify cohort. These individuals are not waiting for permission. They are not asking if, they've already decided it's my time. If you are a member of that Amplify cohort that joined us for the past 2 days, please stand up and be recognized. You are the very reason that we are here. You are the spark, and your courage reminds us, and you remind me, that taking the next step in your career journey is not just personal. It's a contribution to our national workforce and the defense of our nation's values. And yet, we still have work to do. Yesterday, we hosted some of our nation's most senior leaders to discuss the Department of Defense's active duty spouse survey that was released on Monday. And we saw progress. For the first time in recent memory, we saw a 5% increase in labor participation for military spouses. And that is progress, and that is impact. But here's what else we saw. 6 in 10 spouses said their financial situation is comfortable, and that's a 10-point drop since 2019. 1 in 10 military spouses is on nutritional assistance. And spousal support remains the #1 predictor of whether a service member remains in uniform in service to this country. And we are seeing an all-time high of military spouses who are in support of separation. I know very well, as an active duty Army spouse for the last 20+ years during our nation's longest conflicts, that decisions were made every single day around if I had an opportunity to go to work, extending Justin's time in service. This isn't only about paychecks, although it very much is a big part of the discussion. It's about retention, it's about readiness, purpose, and resilience. And it is also about the future of our all-volunteer force, because military spouses are making decisions at home every single day. So let's talk about today's theme, Forging America's Talent. It's not a catchy slogan, it's a strategic imperative. If America is to remain competitive, if we are to lead in innovation, security, and economic growth, we must tap into every well of talent that we have in America. And friends, that includes military spouses. Right now, skills have a half-life of 2 years. It used to be 10 years. That means what's cutting edge today is obsolete in 24 months. The pace of change is no longer incremental, it's exponential, and it is flying. To keep up, to stay ahead, we must build intentional pathways, we must be more bold and innovative than we have ever been before. We must reimagine our workforce and upskill, reskill, and start with the most mobile, resilient, adaptable, and mission-ready talent pool this country has ever seen, and that is each and every single military spouse that's in this room and around the globe. If you are a company, a policymaker, a hiring manager, or a small business owner, you're here today because you already believe in the power of this community. But today, I challenge you to go further. Elevate your commitment, accelerate your action, all gas, no brakes. This is not a time for half measures. This is a time to build intentional pathways, design flexible policies, and create career ecosystems that don't just include military spouses, but lift them up and depend upon them for success. One partner who is leading the way, who embodies the ethos of bold action, is T-Mobile. Their commitment to military spouses doesn't sit on a website or in a PowerPoint. It's baked into their operations. It's in their hiring practices, their culture, and their leadership at every level. And now it's my honor to introduce someone who not only reflects that commitment, but amplifies it every day. Please join me in welcoming the Vice President of Legal Affairs at T-Mobile, a true champion of workforce innovation and a tireless advocate for military spouses. Please welcome MJ Fell.
I am thrilled to be here with you today at the Hiring Our Heroes Military Spouse Employment Summit. This is an event rooted in connection, commitment, and the collective belief that military spouses have amazing strengths that deserve real opportunity. This event not only celebrates the incredible talent and resilience of our military spouses, but also fosters meaningful partnership to help them thrive in the workforce. Before I go any further, I do want to take a moment to thank our sponsors who made today possible. We are so grateful to each of you for supporting this day for military spouses and for the companies who came here today to learn more. And a particular thanks to T-Mobile, who has shown time and again that it's not just a company with a big, fast network, but one with a big heart that truly understands the value of investing in military families. To the employers here today, thanks for showing up with intention. Your willingness to learn, listen, and lean in to what military spouses can bring to your organizations is how real change begins. And to the military spouses in the room, I've been in your shoes. My husband served for 26 years in the US Navy. And I remember in the early years of our marriage, when I would attend retirement ceremonies with him, I heard that phrase that we've all heard so many times. We want to thank the family because they served too. And I'll be honest, back then I didn't really buy it. I'd smile and clap and nod politely, but in my head what I was thinking was, the families aren't the ones in uniform. They're not the ones deploying to war zones. Boy, was I wrong. Through all the moves, the deployments, the geo-batch tours, the career sidesteps, and while trying to hold it all together with 3 little kiddos and a full-time job, I came to understand on a deep and personal level, military spouses and families do serve. And more than that, it's the spouses who lead. You lead with perseverance. You show up, not just for your service member, but for your kids, your communities, your spouse's command, your workplaces, and your and your military spouse friends. You jump in where you're needed. You forge friendships quickly and deeply. And you say yes to the hard things. You adapt, you organize, you inspire. In short, you've got the soft skills superpowers, skills that companies want: resilience, agility, emotional intelligence, leadership, loyalty. These aren't just buzzwords, they're your daily reality. And that's why events like this matter, because the world is starting to catch up what we've known all along. Military spouses are a force in every sense of the word. And Hiring Our Heroes exists to bridge that understanding between employers who want great talent and military spouses who are that talent. We're here to build solutions that travel with you, to create work that flexes, grows, and respects your journey. T-Mobile has taken concrete steps to ensure military spouses can build and sustain meaningful careers. One example is 40 hours of paid time off for PCS moves. This benefit offers critical breathing room during the chaos of a cross-country PCS move. It means no lost pay, no risk to job security, and a smoother transition during a stressful time for families. And T-Mobile didn't stop there. They also provide portable work location opportunities tailored to military spouses. With portable work locations, military spouses don't have to start over after every move. They can grow, learn, and advance their careers, no matter where the military sends them. Instead of constantly rebuilding from scratch, military spouses have the chance to build something lasting and meaningful. And I know the impact of these types of policies firsthand. If I had not been permitted flexible work early in my career, I would not be where I am today. That flexibility provided me with job continuity, consistent income, and most importantly, meaningful work that I love. And that kind of support doesn't just change careers, it changes lives. So, to the military spouses in the room, I see you, I know your strengths, and you are not a footnote in someone else's service. You are leaders in your own right. To the employers, thank you for being here today, for listening, and for seeing the incredible talent that military spouses offer. And to T-Mobile and all of our sponsors, thank you for doing more than just talk about support. Thank you for delivering it. Through intentional policies, flexible work, and genuine inclusion, you're creating real and lasting change. Together, we are shaping a future where military spouses don't just adapt, they thrive. A future where employers don't just accommodate military life, they embrace it. Thank you so much for giving me your time this morning. I am truly grateful for the opportunities I had to grow a meaningful career. And with events like this one, I'm looking forward to many more military spouses having those same opportunities. Thank you so much.
Presenting this year's Military Spouse Advocacy Impact Award. From Hiring Our Heroes, Yesenia Hagewood, and from CareSource Military and Veterans, Selena Martin.
It's my pleasure this morning to stand with my good friend Selena here today to present an award that holds a special place in the heart of our military spouse community, an award for advocacy. In the military spouse world, service is often defined by the uniform, but behind every service member is a network of quiet, steadfast strength spouses who serve in their own way every single day. They often move, adapt constantly, and give selflessly, usually without recognition or applause. And within this remarkable group, there are individuals who go even further, those who step up, speak out, and build bridges in areas unknown to others. Advocacy in the military spouse community isn't just about raising awareness. It's about creating real, lasting change. It's about making sure that spouses have access to resources, feel seen and heard, and know they are not alone. It's about standing in the gap, offering a hand, a voice, and making a vision a reality for something better. That's why this award matters. It's not just about recognition. It's a reminder that advocacy matters, that one spouse's efforts can ripple outward and uplift families, improve systems, and strengthen the entire community. It sends a message that what happens behind the scenes, the tireless hours of organizing, mentoring, and encouraging, is valued and deeply impactful.
Today, we honor Nicole Morrison, a person who has embraced the mission wholeheartedly. Her efforts have not only broken new ground, but laid the foundation for lasting change. Nicole, Amazon's first ever military spouse program manager, has transformed how one of the world's largest companies supports, retains, and advances military spouse talent. Through a data-driven and people-first approach, Nicole has led initiatives that improve workplace flexibility and expand development opportunities for military spouses globally. From launching global focus groups and benefit enhancements to creating leadership programs, Nicole has made military spouse advocacy a a strategic business priority. Her work has not only positioned her organization as an industry leader, but more importantly, it has created pathways for career growth and stability for thousands of military spouses. Nicole, your vision, dedication, and impact are truly inspiring. On behalf of all of us who have been inspired by your advocacy and leadership, please help us welcome to the stage Nicole Morrison, the recipient of the 2025 Military Spouse Advocacy Impact Award. Congratulations.
Up next, our panel discussion on leading the charge. Chief Human Resource Officer perspectives on strategically hiring military spouses, presented by Boeing. Please welcome our moderator, Hiring Our Heroes Ambassador, Rosemary Williams.
Good morning, everyone. I'm pleased to bring on the stage today three great panelists. I'm very excited to share with you their points of view. Tammy Cabanas from USAA, Leslie Fouch from Leidos,
and Holly Courtwright from Navy Federal Credit Union.
Please give them a warm welcome. Well, no one cares what I think, so let's get started. Tammy, we talk a lot about military spouses bringing resilience, adaptability, a strong sense of mission to the workplace. How do organizations like USAA that have long served the military community prioritize creating an inclusive culture that truly embraces and values military talent?
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you. I'm so excited to be here today. USAA, serving our military, is the core of what we do. We think about it every single day. It's part of our DNA and just how we operate. And also to be a proud sponsor of this summit, so really thrilled to be here. It's also important for us, military, which includes our veterans and our military spouses, it is a key initiative for USAA. So again, it's at the heart of everything that we do. When I think about military spouses, you know, a couple of years ago, we had some of them come up to us and say, you know what, we love being at USAA, we love working here, but you know what, we need more. And we said, you know what, we're here to listen. Tell us what we need to do. So we spent a year going through with a cohort to get feedback, to understand the sentiment, to get ideas, solutions, create the program design. And what we really heard was around flexibility, childcare, mental health resources, and again, flexibility, flexibility, flexibility. How do we get help with reacclimation when, you know, our loved one comes back from deployment? And so as we thought about the design elements, we kept that front and center of what we needed to do. And this really permeates everything that we do in our hiring, in our recruitment process, and all of our talent programs. And in regard specifically to military spouses, and I heard someone mention it earlier, you know, they're underemployed, and oftentimes their resume has gaps. And how do you, ensure that you're creating the right, we're using AI to be able to help understand that that is part of something that we are still interested in versus just carving it out. And also working with military spouses if they self-identify through the process. And I know we were talking with my colleagues a little earlier that maybe they don't want to self-identify, but we say do that. And when you're hired, we're going to match you with another military spouse to really be a mentor and help to guide you as you go through USAA.
That's great. There's a great body of work about peer mentorship working, and especially with military spouses. Since the Department of Defense started issuing military families in 1977, families have always found each other for that peer mentoring, and that's wonderful to formalize it. Leslie at Leidos, 48,000 in your workforce, that's large. Actually, all of them are fairly large. From your seat at the executive table, how have you seen corporate culture evolve to embrace military talent, and what role do you believe leadership plays in shaping a truly inclusive environment for military spouses?
That's a big question. Just want to say up front, I am a military spouse as well, so as someone who has dealt with unemployment, underemployment for at least 15 plus years of my career, I completely understand what it's...
You had, I hate to interrupt, but your name tag was hilarious. You had spouse, sponsor...
Yeah, I got all four on that.
You were dragging it around the ground, but anyway, please.
But it's interesting to be in the position I'm in and the experience that I've had. Just to say to military spouses out there, it just takes a little bit extra time and resilience. But what that brings to me in my job is a perspective that I think some people do not have. I will say we have, as Rosemary said, 48,000 people in our company. We have 12 executives at the table, and 2 of us actually are military spouses. So it is possible, it does happen. So we take a different track than sometimes other people do. But that, as the first speaker said today, that's what I think brings the resilience and a really amazing perspective to employers. So from my perspective, from our leadership team, when we think about the culture, 20% of our employees today actually are military veterans or spouses. So it is an important part of who we are and the mission that we serve for this country. So it's already, I think, very welcoming to military, but military spouses specifically, I know, becomes a lot more challenging. I just shared this morning with the other panelists, I have friends who do not disclose when they start with a company they are a military spouse because they're afraid if they say that up front, they won't get hired, because if they have to move, they are afraid they will lose their job. So just bringing an atmosphere and a culture that we welcome that and we honor that and we understand what military veterans and spouses can bring to a company. We bring that, I think, and it's clear in the culture that we have and how we communicate and the opportunities that we provide. I met a new military spouse at our company last week. And the energy that she has and the excitement of just so excited to find a culture where she feels like she has the flexibility to move and follow her husband on the mission that he's serving for our country, and she can still have a meaningful career. That's really what it's all about, and just allowing that, that to be okay and appreciated and advocated for in what we do as a company.
There's a lot of ways of measuring success, and I wonder if spouses self-identifying as military spouses isn't one of them, because for years, you're exactly right, it was something to hide. Holly, we talked a little bit about military spouses bringing resilience, adaptability, mission focus to the workplace. How do you personally champion those qualities within your talent strategy and influence others on your team, leadership team, to do the same?
It's a great question. I so believe in the importance of giving talent opportunities to military spouses because they bring such strengths and values that directly align to our values at Navy Federal. Our mission is to support the financial health of our military members and their families. And I cannot think of another group in addition to the service members, veterans, than the military spouses who have these incredible values that match ours. They're service-oriented, they have huge integrity, and they are dedicated to their community, supporting their families and other families. And so we know that to support service members and their families, we have to support their financial health as well as their mental health and their overall well-being. Part of supporting that financial health is ensuring that military spouses have not only an income, but a long-term career where their income can grow. And I think that's a huge challenge. We have a military community employee resource group, and we've done some focus groups with military spouses. And it's one thing to earn a job when you're deployed, your PCS. It's another thing to have a career that you can continue with an employer and build on your skill sets and have development opportunities to get into management. Many of our military spouses are deployed overseas with their families. And to support their spouses, they need to go wherever they go. We just highlighted someone on our team who went from California to Japan, back to California, back to Japan, and then to the DC area, right? How do you have a career if you have to change employers and do different jobs every time? So being able to support that, and we align internal mobility team members to our military spouses to enable them to move and coach them and give them opportunities to move into leadership and grow their careers. Our COO, our Chief Operating Officer, is a military spouse. She started in one of our Navy federal branches in Puerto Rico as a military spouse. And she has risen all the way in 25 years to Chief Operating Officer. And you can imagine, therefore, myself, Cara Cardona, we advocate with the rest of our leadership to be like, we're gonna support our military spouses, and we're gonna have flexible programs and offer them career opportunities. And by the way, it's just not the right thing to do. They are incredibly talented. They can problem solve, they can multitask, right? They make decisions every day. These are the qualities we want in our leadership, and they certainly demonstrate day in and day out the commitment to supporting and serving the military, which is what we're all about. So let's give flexibility and opportunities over the course of careers and on their journeys, and support that with our leadership as well.
Wonderful. And thank you for that. Tammy, Holly brings up one example of sort of the PCSing nightmare that happens, and everybody has a story, or at least knows of one. The other sort of element to being a military family is transition, right? And we know there's a good body of work around how vulnerable the service member and the spouse and the family are during this time. And I wanted to ask, what steps are you and your team at USAA, knowing that you have 37,000 employees, 400 HR specialists, how do you ensure a positive experience for military members and their spouses, especially during that transition period?
You know, so it is all about the family, whether it's PCS, whether it's deployment, whether it's reacclimation, and we base it on two different factors. And the first is around the program design. So one of the things I talked about before was around the flexibility. So our employees, the military spouses, need time, and whether that's backup child care, whether that's dealing with other types of issues. And so we have, as of January, we are providing to all full-time military spouses and our veterans to have 80 hours that they can use for military events, for child care, whatever they may need it for, and that is on top of their annual vacation. We do it up to 50 hours for part-time workers, and this is something that really helps them with that time away when they're dealing with things that non-military families are having to handle. The other thing that we do is on the child care front is providing backup child care and also subsidizing child care. So we know from one of the surveys that was done with Blue Star families was that, you know, around mid 60% say child care is one of the most expensive and difficult things for military families. So it's something that we keep top of mind every day. We also guarantee remote. So when a military spouse has to move, that job will go with them. And they still have the ability to take new jobs, to get promoted in their current job. So it's not closing the door on those opportunities and that development for each one of them. The other thing is around culture. So this is really the second prong of our strategy. And our culture, the tone starts from the top. It starts with our CEO, and our CEO embraces, I mean, we are here to serve our members, our military families. And so that has to permeate everything that we do. So with our military spouses, we celebrate them. We have a day that's Military Spouse Appreciation Day. We bring in speakers to come in and to talk about various topics that are top of mind, and just really have an opportunity to call out all the things that they do each and every day. They're not the only one, you know, the serving member is not just the one that has the challenges, it is the family as well that's left behind. So we approach it from all different angles. The other thing we do is mission moments. So at the start of all of our meetings, we take a couple of minutes for people to share stories to connect them with our mission. And so this is also a great opportunity for our military spouses to tell a story about how it's impacting them or how USAA has helped them. And so just beginning meetings with that mission moment really does reground everyone in the room on the reason and the purpose that we're here at USAA every single day. And then we have, you know, an action group, and that action group is responsible for always understanding the sentiment of this group. And how do we make sure that if there's tweaks that we need to make to our benefits and to our programs, we have real-time feedback and the opportunity to make those changes, because we know it's an ever-changing landscape, and there may be new things that come up that we haven't yet thought about. So it's a really important way for us to get that continued feedback.
That's wonderful. And at Deloitte, we have a similar mechanism by spouses, for spouses, and that feedback has been invaluable. Yeah. Leslie, one specific initiative or policy Leidos has implemented that has directly impacted military spouse hiring or retention, and a little bit about the results you've seen from that initiative.
Okay, retention we've talked about quite a bit already. I think the flexibility is probably the biggest piece of the retention, just allowing people to work from where they are. I've personally have had to move 15 times in 20 years, so I completely understand the impact that has on a career, especially really a professional career trajectory. It makes it very challenging, but allowing people the flexibility they need when it's not their choice to take their job with them wherever they go. So that's really probably our biggest initiative, just to make sure we are consistent with that and really following through. And then from a hiring perspective, we have particular programs where we've found a lot more success. We have a behavioral health program that supports the DoD. We hired 170 military spouses just on that program alone. It supports our military families and communities in the military communities themselves. So it's great for our spouses to be able to give back. And one of the reasons why we were able to make that change is the licensure requirements. So we've had different
huge
regulatory and legal changes in particular fields that have allowed spouses to bring those licenses across state lines. So that's been a huge opportunity, not only for us as an employer, for a lot of employers to really look at the talent differently, because just because you move, you can still have that license be the same in whatever state that you're going to. So that's been a huge part of our opportunity. When we think about retention, we don't have to specifically focus on a state license. We can understand that even if they move, they will move to another military community where we would likely have the same program. So they can still support our military families, and we can still support them in their career journey as well. So big change for us.
And the behavioral health program was in my portfolio when I was at DoD, and hiring spouses against that program has been a game changer. And the program manager was active duty Army too, Cece, who's amazing. Holly, as the world's largest credit union, let's just sit on that for a second. As the world's largest credit union, how do you work across departments, HR, DEI, operations, to ensure military spouses are not only hired, but also set up to thrive and grow within the organization?
Absolutely. We have 25,000 employees across our organization, and 12% are military spouses. So this has been a huge endeavor for us. And I'm going to tag on with what Tammy said about the study with Blue Star Families that USAA and Navy Federal Credit Union did together. We had to learn a lot doing studies like this. We also have done studies to better understand the whole PCS experience. And what do we need to provide to military spouses to military service members that supports them not only with their financials, but all aspects of their lives. So we put a lot of programs and partnerships together with other businesses and nonprofits in the communities where we operate to build out a fulsome approach to that experience. And now we're going to be taking on the veterans' experiences with their family members. So one of the things we learned from Blue Star and other studies we did is military spouses need dedicated support. And if you're a large organization, you can't fly by the seat of your pants and hope that that happens. So you have to put all areas of HR, recruiting, onboarding, development, inclusion all together. And the business units and the business unit leaders need to also own and be part of this program. So hiring managers, people that need to bring in new folks in the branches. We have a branch rotation and development program. All of this comes together under our military spouse career continuity program. That's a mouthful. It has 5 initials, but you wouldn't understand that. So, but the whole program is about ensuring we line up internal mobility talented consultants who partner with the business to ensure that not only are military spouses getting their next assignment when they PCS, but that their development accelerates, that they're part of one of our rotational programs, that they're receiving mentors in the branches or in our contact center. I actually have a lot of military spouses who are now in our training organization that work directly with me. And so how do they develop? How do they get that career support? It's an overarching umbrella that brings all of our other talent programs together, but it only works because our business unit leaders and our managers are on board with that. We've also had to train our managers on how to provide the flexibility that military spouses need. That is part of our culture, flexibility and coming together and serving each other like we serve our members. And also, I think to Tammy's point on the benefits front, the leave benefits we've extended beyond what we might normally have, even though they're super generous, to our military spouses. We also have ensured that they can leverage care.com and concierge service to help with healthcare, because that's always last minute and a challenging scenario and situation. So how do we support that when they're going through PCS or deployments and moves, as well as how do we ensure that continuing education and reimbursements, how do these all translate and travel around the globe with someone? That's a big challenge. So we put in programs in place to really support all that. And I think because it's aligned to our values, our leaders immediately see the value. And I can also tell you, military spouses are the most committed employees you will ever meet in your entire life. And I have a lot on my team that I have met. They will do anything to commit. And so when you give a little extra flexibility and support, you get it back 10x.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's fantastic. Can I have a round of applause for that? Because that's extraordinary. Well put. Very well put. Tammy, you talked a little bit earlier about program design, and I wanted to do a little bit of a deeper dive. What innovative strategies are you planning to implement to attract and retain top military talent and military spouses? And how will these strategies differ from your current approaches? And what kind of impact are you expecting from that?
Yeah. So, you know, one thing I do want to say, Holly, I couldn't agree more. Like military spouses, they are so energetic, right? Adaptable, flexible. And I would say, you know, we have a significant portion of our population that are military spouses. And just to also say that when you do a great job as a company, you retain them. And our retention is in the low single, our turnover is in the low single digits in this team because of the programs that we provide. But when I think about the roadmap going forward, it's pretty ambitious. We've done a lot of work around reimagining the way that we do our military hiring. We've implemented AI, and with the plans that that is going to scale and allow us to do more precision hiring. Sometimes we find, coming in and translating those skills from being in the military into a corporate environment, sometimes that gets lost. And by using new technology, being able to make that match much more effective is going to provide for a better experience for that person coming in. And then the other piece is that, we are using data to see how are we doing, what's working, what's not. That way we can, again, as I mentioned before, make those changes in the moment versus waiting for us to see that there's turnover or the sentiment is low. We want to be able to be on the forefront of addressing that. The other thing is making sure that, we look to our strategic partners externally and how those organizations can help to inform the way that we're building our transition programs, for instance. That's one of the things, whether, it's a veteran or a military spouse coming into a company, that transition process, newly entering corporate America, can be pretty difficult. And so how do you provide that support? Because it is different, and recognizing that is super important, I think, for our military families to be able to thrive in a corporate environment. I also want to say, threaded through all of the plans will continue to be around support. And, just one quick story. We have a military spouse who's based in the Northeast in our corporate affairs area. And her husband got deployed, and she reached out to her teammates and said, I'm going to need help because I'm going to be a single parent for the next several months. The team jumped in, helped be flexible, provided backup when was needed, and that's culturally how everybody operates every day, and they're given the permission to do that and help their teammates. And there's nothing more empowering in to say, you know what, I'm going to jump in and take that for you. Don't worry about it. I know you have to go take care of this with one of your kids today. They also sent her a gift, and I will tell you, just the feeling of loving being at the company is more than that $5 candle and that greeting card. So it's who we are. It's in our DNA.
Yeah, wonderful. So Leslie, I want to pick up where Tammy left off. You mentioned technology, Tammy. So looking ahead, Leslie, how do you see military spouse inclusion intersecting with the broader workforce trends to include AI, more emphasis on remote work, skill-based training, these things that we learn about in these fora?
There's a great opportunity here. I think we're a technology company primarily, Leidos, and when we think about the future of our workforce, our whole workforce, we want to have an AI-ready workforce that applies to everyone, including military spouses coming into the environment. So what I appreciate about that is I think we're all starting from a pretty common baseline, unless you are a scientist or a technologist every day. But a lot of us have an opportunity to learn about AI, so we're all starting from the same place. So there's so much free education out there as it relates to AI. For our employees specifically, we have a lot of free courses. We have upskilling that you can do for free when you join the company as it relates to AI. So really building your skills internally with whatever you're interested in, AI as it relates to any specific environment. So that's huge, I think, for employees to feel like they're not already starting behind, because I think when even using me as an example, I've done so many different things that took me off my main career trajectory. I was an attorney to start my career. I was a substitute teacher. I was a mortgage broker. I did a lot of different things.
Oh, you are a military spouse.
So when you think about the journey you're taking, you always feel like you're just starting from zero. So I think there's an opportunity today. There are so many courses out there for free online that you can take just to learn about AI and learn about what you need to get into the workplace today, so you don't feel like you're starting from a place that's behind where everybody else is. I think another part of your questions that relates to the future of flexibility and how people are going to fit into work, we really have to continue to embrace this flexibility. We were having a conversation this morning. There are a lot of companies who are swinging that pendulum back and asking employees to come into work, and we are really doing our best to understand how important it is to have that flexibility, whether it's a day, a week, whether you have to move for a year and you have to just telework from a different location. I've worked from Hawaii, I've worked from Germany. So, you just have to be flexible in terms of where your time zone is and where you really need to meet your commitments. And most of the time, that military spouse, I got up at 3 o'clock in the morning and did my job. And most of us are willing to do that. If we have something we're committed to, we know that we're going to show up and do what it takes. So huge opportunity, I think, today for that intersection of the military spouse talent to get what needs to be done today and what the skills are needed for the future. And one more thing as it relates to skills. We are changing the way we look at jobs to look more at skills. This is a trend if you think about how we need to influence our customers and government. They also have to look at skills differently. So we still have some requirements that come from the customer that say you need 15 years of experience and it has to look like this and your degree has to be one thing. But I think a lot of our employers are banding together and helping hopefully influence a change to understand it's about the skills and not about what your piece of paper looks like to get to the next job.
I would imagine you'd have to be really flexible because you're in the evolving requirements of national security and health. I mean, it's changing almost daily.
Correct.
So I see that. Okay, great. Thank you. Holly, advice you'd give to companies that are just starting to explore military spouse employment strategies and build sustainable impact in that initiative, some of whom we're here today?
Absolutely. I think this is so extremely possible to do with a commitment from leadership in your organizations. Imagine pitching, why you should employ military talent, why you should employ military spouses, and the commitment we make as organizations to support military members and give them that wholesome opportunity. I think it's very easy to build a case for doing this. I think the execution and sustainment of that is where you can really put in the work. And a couple thoughts and ideas: an organization-wide commitment and understanding of the why and how this fits in your culture and how this fits in your mission. Our culture is very service-oriented because we serve our members. We also serve each other inside as team members. I think that type of value system and culture is what enables this to go extremely well. We had an example of a military spouse who was in our military community employee resource group. And unfortunately, very tragically, her spouse died in a helicopter accident. She had a young child and was pregnant with another child. Our organization embraced her in every possible way. And no one had to tell people to do things, okay? This was obvious on her teams, what they did to support her, to embrace her, to provide care for her and her family, to give her the time to heal, but also to give her the opportunity when she came back with flexibility to provide meals, to go to her home. They were remote in Colorado, to go to her home with the team and work together with her. This is what's in the DNA. So how do you take your values and show an organizational-wide commitment? I think then the execution is create seamless experiences for these military spouses. Have all of your groups across your organization. And if you have a smaller team, assign someone as a leader or assign someone from your HR team to own this, to start and just say, let me sit down and interview you and understand, what do you need? How do we support you with leave, with transitions, with new roles, with mentoring? I think you can start small, take baby steps and build over time. Flexibility is key. Totally agree. As we look at organizations, we kind of swing back from one area to the other, but keeping hybrid jobs, keeping remote work, enabling people to have those moments where they can care for their families or do a reload and then still work is really, really key. And finally, I think measure your impact and make improvements and tell stories. We tell stories on our intranet and through our media that are the stories of military spouses and what they've been able to do. That's inspiring to everyone else in your organization and to support them.
Speaking of inspiring, a round of applause for our global executive panel. Thank you very much.
Please welcome the Senior Vice President of Small Business Policy at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, Tom Sullivan.
What an honor it is to be here with you this morning. I'm the Chamber's small business guy, and I have the best job in this building, potentially the best job in the world. One of the reasons I have the best job is that I am surrounded by people like Eric Eversole, like Liz O'Brien, like Brian Alvarado, and 400 others who work in this magnificent building and help small business every day. I also get to work with CEOs. Call them innovators, call them job creators, call them small business owners. I get to work with them every day. And primarily, I work with a group that sets policy. It's called the Small Business Council. We limit that council to 100 small business owners, and the chair of that council is Joe Shamus, a distinguished military veteran who served for 11 years as a special operations pilot. I first met Joe when he was the co-owner of Flags of Valor. He now runs an early-stage venture firm in McLean, Virginia. So when I was thinking about, well, what should I talk about this morning? I called the logical person, Joe's wife. And Sarah Shamus told me a little bit about what it's like to be a military spouse. She told me what many of you already know. It's not easy. Now, Sarah has an educational background and degrees in childhood education. She wanted to be a teacher. As a military spouse, she found she was lucky to get a job as a teacher's aide. She started thinking about being her own boss. And because Sarah grew up in a family that worked in real estate, that's where she focused. She decided to run and start a remodeling company. She flipped houses. Turns out she was really good at it. She was good at it for the reasons that you've talked about for several conferences, for reasons that you live every day: grit, determination, resilience. But another reason she's good at it, and this is what we talked about, was perspective. The perspective she gained from being a military spouse, the perspective she gained from being a mom, was a superpower. That superpower as a small business owner allowed for her to focus on what was truly important. Now, for those of you who are either related or run your own small business, you know that stuff goes sideways every day, sometimes every hour of every day. But what Sarah described to me, that superpower of perspective, is that a lot of it doesn't matter. And her ability to focus in on the things that really mattered made her a damn good small business owner. She also talked with me about the why, and the why is something we know more about thanks to the hard work of hiring our heroes. They partnered with Google a few years ago to really probe into Why does running a small business owner appeal to military spouses? The number one reason why many military spouses choose to work longer hours than a normal job and run their own business is flexibility. More recently, there's a study out of Syracuse that really says the same thing but uses different words. 37%, the highest motivation for military spouses to start businesses was personal freedom. Personal freedom, flexibility, they mean the same thing, but really what it told me in the conversation that I had with Sarah was, you get to decide to work crazy hours instead of someone else necessarily telling you what hours to work. With those things in front of every military spouse that wants to work twice as many hours to start their own business, there's some sense of, well, why? Why do so many people want to be their own boss? And it really does boil down to flexibility and personal freedom. And that same phenomenon goes well beyond military spouses into the global population, which makes me bullish about small business, makes me bullish about American small business. Because for 20 years, new business starts were pretty flat. Then all of a sudden, COVID happened. Businesses were forced to shut down. Now keep in mind, it took 10 years for new business starts to basically start going up after 2008 recession. It took 4 months for small businesses to skyrocket after COVID. 4 months. That's why I'm bullish about small business in America. And when I talk with someone like Sarah Seamus, and when I hear from many of you, and especially our award winners and the cohort that was recognized earlier, I get even more bullish about small business. I get bullish on military spouses starting small business because you have that perspective that most small business owners don't have. You have that perspective that allows for you to narrow in on what's important and get it done. So thank you for letting me talk with you this morning. I'm bullish on all of you, and I'm bullish on this country. Thank you.
Presenting this year's Military Spouse Entrepreneur Impact Award from Hiring Our Heroes, Angie Hood, and from Grow with Google, Ben Paris.
Good morning. It is my absolute honor to present the 2025 Military Spouse Entrepreneur Impact Award, an award that recognizes not only business success, but the heart, resilience, and innovation military spouses bring to their communities through entrepreneurship. This award shines a light on military spouses who don't just build businesses, they build opportunity. They create jobs, fill gaps, and uplift the very communities they call home, even when home changes every few years. As you'll see in the video, being a military spouse means adapting, reinventing, and often starting from scratch. But leave it to a military spouse to turn every challenge into a catalyst for growth. Today's honoree embodies that spirit fully. She's built something remarkable, not only for herself, but for those around her. Let's take a moment to hear her story.
Hey, Hi, I'm Haley. I'm the owner of Always Faithful Cleaning, LLC, and I am a military spouse. Being a military spouse, I realized with my husband's work schedule and our home life, it was extremely hard to find a normal job. So that's when I decided to start my own house cleaning company. Always Faithful Cleaning is a residential cleaning and junk removal team located in Jacksonville, North Carolina, servicing the surrounding areas. We offer standard cleans, deep cleans, move in and move out cleans, and custom cleans along with junk removal. We work with about 38 real estate agents and offer to be paid at closing because we know that moving can be extremely expensive. So they send over everything over at closing and we collect our check at closing, so there's no upfront cost. And many know that Semper Fi stands for Always Faithful. Being a military town, we wanted something that was going to stick with families in the area. We started kind of advertising, and I realized that other military spouses were also looking for a job, and they were asking for flexible schedules. So we currently have 7 employees. All of my employees are military spouses. I'd wanted to create something not only to help myself, but to help others, and I just knew that opening up a cleaning business was going to be that thing. With Always Faithful Cleaning, we like to give back to our community. We like to donate to local churches. Our outreach program located in Richlands, along with our school systems, we do everything that we can to help donate items through our junk removal team. We look forward to doing a lot more in the future. I'm extremely proud to be able to employ other military spouses and knowing that they have a flexible schedule for a better work and home life balance. It's exciting to know that I've created something not only for myself, but for others.
Hey everyone, so what you just saw is only part of the story. Under Haley Hedabaugh's leadership, Always Faithful Cleaning, LLC, has become more than a business. It's a beacon of what military spouse entrepreneurship can look like at its best. It's innovative, mission-driven, and community-centered. Haley has faced the unique hurdles that come with military life and business ownership, and still, she's remained committed to creating employment opportunities for fellow spouses, delivering top quality service, and giving back at every step. Her vision, resilience, and unwavering dedication make her not only a successful entrepreneur, but an invaluable force within the military spouse ecosystem. It is with great pride that we present the 2025 Military Spouse Entrepreneur Impact Award to Haley Hedabaugh. Haley, your journey is a testament to what's possible when courage meets purpose. Please join us on stage to accept this well-deserved honor.
And now, a special fireside chat. Joining the conversation, please welcome the President of Hiring Our Heroes, Eric Eversole, and performing the duties of Deputy Undersecretary for Personnel and Readiness at the U.S. Department of Defense, Mr. Timothy Dill.
Well, good morning, everyone. We're really excited to have Mr. Timothy Dill join us, who, as you've heard, is performing the duties of being the Undersecretary for Personnel and Readiness at the Department of Defense. So I'm going to throw you the softball first, and that is, let's hear a little bit about your background and your passion for your current mission.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. I appreciate it. Thanks very much for having me. Appreciate Hiring Our Heroes, as well as the Chamber of Commerce Foundation for hosting such an impressive venue and event. So good morning, everyone. Tim Dill. As Eric said, I have a couple of roles right now in the Pentagon. I'm performing the duties of Deputy Undersecretary of Defense for Personnel and Readiness, and I'm also performing the duties for the Assistant Secretary of Defense for Manpower and Reserve Affairs, which contains the military community and family policy portfolio, including support to military spouses. So, kind of the route I took to get here. I joined the Army active duty in 2007. I commissioned as an infantry officer out of Army ROTC. I was purely a product of watching TV coverage about the surge in Iraq. We were going back to 100,000 service members on the ground, and I was young and able-bodied and realized, why not me? So I walked over the ROTC trailer, and the rest is history. So I did 10 years on active duty. I led soldiers in Afghanistan and Iraq, Northwest Africa at the tail end of that. Got out of service in 2017 from active duty, stayed on as a reservist, used the very generous GI Bill to go back to school, became a civilian attorney, moved to DC, did a couple jobs at a firm. I was a Senate staffer, and I was very honored to have the chance to come back to serve in some way, although not in uniform, to be able to do some work on behalf of the military and their families has been a privilege to me. Came in January to the Pentagon to take these roles.
Great. Well,
thank you. Thank you.
So you're wearing many hats.
A couple right now.
I really appreciate your service and your ongoing service. Let's start at the top of the news. On Monday, the Pentagon issued a new active duty military spouse survey, the 2024 survey. What were your thoughts on that survey?
Yeah, appreciate the chance to talk about it. Yeah, just 2 days ago, we were excited to share the results. By any chance, was anyone on the call that we hosted with MSOs and VSOs to introduce the results of the survey? Okay, well, okay, there we go. Yeah, thank you, Jennifer. My team is over there. We'll try to make sure that we have a broader audience as we do this in the future, but to back up, so this is something we do every 2 years, and then in the odd years, we pull data for reserve military spouses. So every year we have one product or the other, either the active duty sampling or the reserve. We had really strong participation. The 2024 survey, we had about 13,000 respondents, which is what we're looking for to make sure we have good data, significant takeaways. And a couple things that stood out. So we saw that financial stability of military spouse households for active duty was running a little bit higher than the population. It was about 5% higher than the average household in America. That's a good thing. We would hope to see that even higher because we know some things about those households. We know there's very hard workers there making a lot of sacrifice, and certainly we think that the Department of Defense owes them financial stability, so I would hope to see a larger differential in the future. We were pleased to see that spouse unemployment had receded a little bit. It sits at 20% per the survey. It was 21% 2 years prior. We're glad to see it didn't increase. We would love to see that come down a lot more. And obviously this is an audience that understands that task and that challenge as well. So we realize we have a lot of work to be done.
And but the other good news piece of it was the amount of military spouses in the workforce participation rate jumped by 5 percentage points to
That's right.
to 69%.
That's right.
So there are some signs of good news there. One of the things that jumped out to me as part of that survey was some of the feelings military spouses have related to the financial security of their families and how that impacts their decision to stay in the military or go. For many of us here, we talk about this as a national security issue. What are your thoughts on military family economic stability as a national security issue?
It's a huge factor. As we see today that it's a very dynamic environment that the Department of Defense faces. We have many factors here, right? We still have a lot of service members overseas. We have a lot of service members in harm's way. We have a high operational tempo. We have a lot of demands placed on service members and their families. And then we also see some of the other challenges, such as when you look at the labor pool, where do we draw the force from? Increasingly, you see young people that are not qualified to serve, whether it's because mental health concerns or physical standards, because we have some stringent medical qualifications to serve. So increasingly we have a young labor pool that is not eligible for service, and unfortunately we also see a decreasing propensity to serve as well. You know, something I talk about all the time is the strong generational links that you see in service members, the likelihood that their children will then choose to pursue service or that they'll inspire other people within their communities to serve. And we must maintain that generational linkage. And so when you think about how hard it is for one, in order for a young person that is interested in service to qualify for service, they receive a lot of expensive and unique training, invaluable experience in the department. What do we want to do with that person and with their family? Retain them. Absolutely, we hope that they will make a decision because they get to vote with their feet at the end of every contract. We hope that they see the department as a valuable and welcoming place for them to continue to serve. And we see in the data that if you ask a military spouse whether they are supportive of their family remaining a military household or not, that's a very strong predictor of whether or not their spouse, the service member, is going to stay. And so we want to keep the family. We have the saying that you recruit the service member and retain the family. That is a household decision. We fully realize that. And if spouses are experiencing instability, if they are not supportive of continuing in the military, we're going to lose that family as well as maybe some of the generational linkage of inspiring the next generation to follow in their footsteps.
Well, I don't know how it is at your house, but that certainly would be true at my house. And if my military spouse was not happy, then we would be walking with our feet.
Absolutely.
You know, over the last couple of years, we've made some good progress on military spouse employment. We've worked hard and aggressively on military spouse licensure and portability. So you're a little bit of a recovering lawyer like I am.
Absolutely,
so
yeah, we got a couple of us up here.
How much fun it is to take a bar exam. But we've also made progress on some initiatives like the Military Spouse Career Accelerator Pilot, which creates internships for military spouses. You know, from your seat now, and I know you haven't been in there very long, but from your seat now, what are some of the department's priorities when it comes to employment for military spouses?
Yeah, I like to split that up into a couple of factors because we're blessed to have a significant number of military spouses that are both in the federal workforce and within the Department of Defense civilian workforce. And right, some of that's a natural pairing when you move to a new duty station and you find some jobs that are needed to fill right there in that area supporting the military community. So for one, I want to acknowledge we have a lot of civilian workforce shaping efforts going on right now in the department. You know, much of that has been in the headlines. And so part of the department's task is to look out for military spouses and their well-being where they're participating in our workforce. And so part of that, for instance, the return to work policy that came out for civilians in the department, we got a lot of reactions. I heard from military spouses and advocacy groups directly about the uniquely situated circumstances performing remotely. They're no longer physically located in that region. And so I'm pleased to report that the department did exempt military spouses. And so that's some of the work that we can do on the Defense Department side. The other side of that, of course, is many of those military spouses are employed on the outside or looking for employment on the outside. And so we look out in the civilian economy, you know, to produce that demand, to recognize the value of military spouses. The Career Accelerator Pilot is a great example of that, to produce paid fellowships and a very, very high conversion rate. I think you quoted the 85% conversion rate, but also our Military Spouse Employment Partnership. We're pleased to have more than 950 other companies and other entities, some are nonprofit entities, that participate in that program. I went to a ceremony just about 2 weeks into the job, probably early February, where we inducted about 234 employers into MSEP, that program. And so we love to broaden the portfolio of available opportunities for military spouses. So those are two of the things, right? Some of the questions are, what do we do inside the department where we hire military spouses? Where do we partner outside the department? And so we want to spread the word, broaden the partnership. For those of you in the audience, if your employer is not an MSEP participant, we sure would love to bring you on. I'll be there, God willing, to shake your hand early next year when you walk across the stage, and we acknowledge your employer's contribution and commitment to onboard military spouses. One of the other things I want to mention, you talked about some of the challenges that are inherent with a military household. And so geographic stability is one, right? We talked about the ability to maintain your employment when you PCS to a new duty station. You talked about licensure and the portability of that when we talk about the patchwork of states. And so part of our mission is also to liaise with state legislatures and work on this issue state by state, because that's not something we can accomplish purely at the federal level. We need to work hand in hand with states and ensure that they facilitate conditions for spouses. So finally, one more thought on this is we recognize the impact that permanent change of station moves have on a military family. It can produce so many of the challenges that we discuss, whether it's where will my children be enrolled in childcare? Where will they attend school on the far side? What are the costs associated with that move itself, right? We hear sometimes when families say they went out of pocket and didn't get reimbursed fully for the expenses of their move, and we're concerned about that. What will the next employer be if you can't transport the job? So there's so many factors. I mean, the extended hours that the military member is working as well when that military member deploys. So because of all those things, our office personnel and readiness is looking very carefully at when we decide we need to do a permanent change of station for a family. Because when you move the service member, you're moving the family, you're uprooting them. We understand that. There's operational needs in the department. We do need the right people in the right places. Sometimes we need some more professional advancement. That's an important thing. But where it's not absolutely critical for the department, we want to make sure that we're not requiring families to be uprooted and do those moves. And we think that helps alleviate a lot of the common factors that we see cited in kind of dislodging the stability of the household.
Yeah, and I appreciate you sharing the PCS, your focus on that as well. We were talking a little bit backstage about how you read a bunch of letters from PCS and how it really tugged on your heartstrings. You want to share a little bit about that if you can?
Yeah, I have a stack of paper on my desk right now that we had shared by an outside group that had just asked the question online of military families, if you've done a PCS move recently, what was your experience? We'd love to hear about it. And that's ground truth. Right, and the spouse survey is one way to get it. Another is to read the direct feedback from households. And so I sat down and committed to putting a lot of time in that stack. I have yet to make it through it, but I've read more than 100 of them. And the number of families that talk about having a scheduled move, plane tickets purchased, ready to move to the next duty station, day of the move, no mover shows up, right? What do you do? Or if those things have been picked up, you get to the far end, your children are waiting for the household goods to arrive, they need the furniture, the toys, doesn't arrive, right? We can't have that in the department. And so those are tough stories to read. We all like to hear good news stories about what we're accomplishing. I would love to sit in a room and hear people talk about how wonderful the department is executing all of its missions and supporting them. But where that's not the case, we need to acknowledge that too. And so I really try to do a lot of events where we engage directly and hear from spouses. How are we doing? And I don't want to shy away from that feedback.
Great. Well, thank you for that commitment. And I know those letters are hard to read, but important to read. So thank you for that.
Yeah, of course.
You had talked a couple of seconds ago or a couple of minutes ago about the well-being of military spouses. And can you talk a little bit about how the department and your office is really focusing on the well-being of military families as part of their service to the military?
Yeah, we have a really broad portfolio in personnel and readiness, and includes so many things that I think sometimes people don't even realize that we have policy control over. So that runs from the military health system, making sure that something like the Exceptional Family Member program, that you can get the care you need for one of your children. We have the Military Community and Family Policy Program within our portfolio. Like I mentioned, we're looking at PCS move policy. It's a really broad range of programs. One of the headliners that we love to promote is Military One Source. For anyone out there that's ever gone to Military One Source, whether you've called in or gone to the website, if you haven't done that, I encourage you to do it. We're responsible to make sure that not only are we offering programs that are helpful for those families, but getting the word out. Right? Not everyone realizes the results of the study came out 2 days ago. We were just talking about that. Not everyone's been to Military One Source and knows that there's so many people ready to help you, standing by just to pick up the phone, right? You just need to know what's out there. So we have a really broad range of ways that we try to support families. I circle back often to highlight, when we're talking employment, the Military Spouse Employment Partnership. Just a wonderful program.
Well, and I think to your point about getting information out and making sure that military spouses and their families are aware of resources One of the things that we've really subscribed to at Hiring Our Heroes, and I think everybody in this room has subscribed to it, is the importance of private and public partnerships and how important it is that we as a community, if we work together, can solve some of these big challenges. What are your views on private and public partnerships, and how can we help you meet your mission?
Yeah. It's a wonderful thing. For one, I appreciate the invitation today because I think this is the start of some of those efforts, right? It's just making sure that we come together. I think it's very clear that, for one, the department would never be able to. The department would love to be able to hire every military spouse and have a job waiting for every PCS move. You know, unfortunately, that scale is not going to happen. So there's not going to be simply a federal solution for every household. And so we look to the communities. We look to the for-profit sector, the nonprofit sector, and we are so blessed to have hundreds and hundreds of partners, for example, in the MSEP program. We also would ask that you would share with your constituencies, for all the advocacy organizations that are out there, if they don't know about some of the resources we offer, and you're exposed to those, like some of the briefings we offer. I've sat down with MSOs and VSOs on calls 3 to 4 times in the last 3 months. We get 50 to 60 MSOs on those calls. And I ask them, please, please tell the people in your organizations about what we're highlighting today. I realize not everyone is going to hear a speech that I give, going to see a press release from the department, but you can be the bearer of that news and point them in the right direction, because we offer a lot of resources. We'll probably never offer everything that perfectly meets the needs, but often I think there's an information gap, and households simply aren't aware of some of the things that they can use.
So I couldn't agree more. And to the extent that we can help get the word out, we're happy to do that. We've had a long-standing partnership, so thank you.
Yeah, we really appreciate that.
Obviously there is really a generational shift that's coming to the workforce. And as we think about the future of work for military spouses, what do you see as far as emerging opportunities for military spouses as we think about those workforce opportunities and how it may align with where the department is going?
Yeah, well, even today as we reshape the department, unfortunately the negative news stories are what's usually carried. But as the department reshapes, we are always very actively looking for the next generation of the workforce, and Secretary Hegseth has signaled that we want the best and brightest to help the department meet its missions too. And so we will continue to be a wonderful employment opportunity. And of course, a lot of those employment opportunities are present at the duty stations when you move and you've just been pulled away from another job. DODEA, the Department of Defense Education Activity, is always looking for the next round of teachers. Child care facilities are always looking for the next round of child care workers as well. So some of those things are things that we offer. I think there's certainly a lot just going on overall in the workforce when you think about AI as well, and that's not unique to DOD or to military households, but I certainly think the extent to which people can be positioning themselves to catch some of those trends, that will suit them well, both in the department and in outside employment as well.
Well, I couldn't agree more, and we're seeing that generational shift each and every day with the work that we do, and AI is obviously playing a very significant role in that future. So we have a minute. What are your, we have a wonderful room here full of advocates and VSO representatives and leaders, military spouses, corporate leaders. What's your parting thoughts as to what they can do to help the military spouse community find their employment opportunities and work with the department?
Yeah, thanks, Eric. Before I forget, one thing I do often forget to do, and then my team reminds me of, is we want to connect with you directly. So we have social media accounts both for Office of the Undersecretary for Personnel and Readiness, as well as the Assistant Secretary of Defense for Manpower and Reserve Affairs. We're on X, we're on LinkedIn, we're on Facebook. So look for us there, and thanks for letting me get that plug. And we would love to have you follow us and connect with you directly. And I also just want to give my value statement. We are so grateful for every military family. I've personally experienced many of the challenges that come with serving, and I'm still very close to so many of my colleagues that continue to serve in uniform and have more challenging jobs than I do, and I talk to them frequently about their experiences and the challenges they face. So I'm so grateful to all the military spouses out in the audience. I also want to let you know that we understand military families are the backbone of the Department of Defense. We talked about the impact on retention. We want to win your vote to stay. And I also want to thank all of the outside entities that are out there, both that help inform, that come alongside military families, and that employ them. This is probably my third time to plug it, but I can't help it. We would love to have you next year for the Military Spouse Employment Partnership. We would love to build that program with you, and we would love to help connect military spouses to the jobs that you offer. And we know you'll get a great hire in a military spouse as well. So thank you for all of what you do. We have so many impressive entities that are represented here today. And also thanks for the time to come talk to you about what the department is doing. And Eric, it's a pleasure to meet you. We're so grateful for your partnership, and we look forward to continuing to work with you.
Great. Ladies and gentlemen, could we give a round of applause to Mr. Tim Dale? Thank you.
The biggest challenge for me finding employment was really career continuity. With frequent PCS moves, it was really difficult to develop personal networks. I had to reinvent myself.
Looking for a job for a whole year without having a single offer really takes a lot on self-confidence and on self-worth.
For us, moving about every year and a half created some significant professional gaps. That really stops the positive trajectory for a military spouse's career.
The biggest challenge for me as a military spouse was always the possibility of relocation. They tend to be reluctant to offer a job because they are looking for long-term employee.
I found Hiring Our Heroes through a hiring event, and it was the first time I really felt seen as a military spouse.
I decided to participate in a HOH Amplify VTC event. That was really the catalyst for me getting really involved in HOH and spouse employment.
You get to learn a lot of resources that help you tremendously during the interviews. I was prepared and I was confident.
I attended the Military Spouse Employer Connect event. I was able to meet the Lieutenant Governor for Maryland, and ultimately attending that event led to the job I currently serve in now.
Within a couple weeks, I got a phone call from Boeing, and they asked me if I wanted to be part of their first MSCAP program.
My job is just a good fit for me as a military spouse because it is remote. I have no fear because I know I have a secure job.
As large as Boeing is, it also creates a stability, and that's really what military spouses are looking for. They're looking to be able to have a meaningful career with someone that appreciates what they do, and then they can have a lasting professional journey with that company.
I currently serve as a director with Maryland's Department of Veteran and Military Families. I'm able to take my firsthand experience as a military spouse and use that to impact programs and policies that are going to better serve the military-connected community in Maryland.
Being here at Boeing is more than just a job. It's being part of a mission-driven company that values resilience, service, and community.
The fellowship was not just to find an opportunity, but it was just to find ourselves as military spouse and just regain our value on what and how we can contribute to the society. And that was the biggest benefit of them all.
Thank you for changing the conversation around military spouse employment. Thank you for seeing military spouses as the leaders and change makers that we are.
Up next, our panel discussion on building longevity, mastering military spouse retention through the 4+1 framework, presented by Lockheed Martin. Please welcome back, from Hiring Our Heroes, our moderator, Brian Alvarado.
Hello again. Good afternoon. afternoon. Everybody doing all right? Awesome. Well, I'm really excited to be having this next conversation with three incredible friends and longtime leaders in the military spouse employment space. So please help me welcome to the stage from T-Mobile, Lacey Craig, from Boeing, Justin Walker, and from Comcast NBC Universal, Mona Dexter. It's all right. All right, so we listened to an incredible panel this morning from a group of CHROs, and we talked about hiring. And that's really important. We want military spouses to be gainfully employed. But I think what we have been working on over the last few years together is about raising the conversation around retention, keeping military spouses employed. That's really what's going to help bring down the gaps in employment, the economic insecurity. And so I want to talk a little bit about that topic with the three of you today. And I want to kick off with a question to you, Mona. You have been a part of this space for a long time. You have led conversations and teams around employment initiatives in the public, the private, and the nonprofit sector. And so I'd like for you to talk to us a little bit about what really drives impact. Why is spouse retention important from your perspective?
Sure. Well, thanks for that question, and thanks for having me here today. I'll just give a quick background to pull together your comments about how I've been in nonprofit, private, and public sector. So I was an active duty military spouse for over 2 decades and definitely pieced together a very nonlinear career. I won't start with where it all started, but it was definitely not where it is now. And one of my roles was with the Soldier for Life, a transition assistance program, as the area manager in South Korea. And I was here at Hiring Our Heroes for 5 years prior to being at Comcast. So yes, I definitely saw the whole of nation approach that is required. So, and that's just what is required. So it is absolutely a business case to retain employees writ large. But military spouses, as mentioned in the first panel, are some of the most dedicated, creative, and will-do employees and teammates across the board. Again, there is such gratitude for having an opportunity to build a career that it just makes sense to focus on the retention. It's a whole journey. It starts with the attraction and the education that requires, again, the nonprofits to let the military spouses they're working with know what are the opportunities and who are the companies that have these opportunities, what do they look like. The public sector also to understand the support that's needed for military spouses to leverage these resources that are available to them, such as the Military Spouse Employment Partnership, and again, make sure that they are working with companies who have roles and who have initiatives to, again, not just attract, but also hire and retain and grow military spouse talent and focus on really the quality of life of the military family. So it's threefold, right? There's a business case for the business to retain and grow talent. It is quality of life for the military family through economic mobility and ensuring that the military families are not worried about, are we going to have enough money for the next PCS? Are we going to have enough to send our children to college, right? It's the economic mobility. And then again, it is the need for military spouses to have that career identity when we have so much talent and so many military spouses who are educated, who are really committed to growing their career in addition to supporting the military community.
Absolutely. Thank you. Lacey, I'm going to come to you next. T-Mobile's commitment to military spouse hiring is well known. You guys are doing incredible work, but retention is a harder conversation. So in your experience, why does investing in that retention matter to your organization?
Yeah, thanks, Brian. Thank you for having us here today, too. I think that retention is the most important part of the conversation because while hiring is an important conversation to have, it's only opening the door. It's not keeping them there. And that's the most important part, is that you can get the military spouses a job, but keeping them there and keeping that opportunity for them, that's the most important part. And so for us, we really identified the need to create that sustainable employment opportunity for our military spouses. And with 70% of our business being within our consumer space, within our retail stores and our call centers, we really knew that we needed to identify some changes that we needed to make. And that's where the 4+1 came in, with the need to have flexible work hours, and then to instill portable work location. And so if a military spouse needs to move, we move with you. So we'll move you to a different store, we'll move you to a different call center. We never wanted a military spouse to feel like their career had to stop once they started with us, because that's the last thing that you should have to worry about. And also, enabling them to take advantage of the PCS paid time off that we enabled last year, because I've never met a military spouse that has to take vacation time to PCS that says, yeah, that was a cool vacation. I got to PCS. So we really wanted to make sure that we enabled our military spouses the opportunity to have all of these things to keep them there, because that's what leads to sustainable employment. It's not just getting them hired, it's keeping them where they are and providing them the opportunities to really thrive once they're there.
Yeah. I've had a few of those really fun vacations. Justin, Boeing's sort of global reach and complexity makes a powerful case study in workforce longevity. Why is it important to Boeing to retain military spouses in talent over time? And how have you integrated that goal into your broader HR perspective?
Yeah, it's a good question. And from our perspective, as we all know, military spouses bring a world of skills and abilities, and also those unspoken intangibles that a lot of other employees don't necessarily have, and we've all talked about that today. And I was asked the question yesterday, actually, around, Mona just mentioned the business case, around military spouses, and you tie it into the longevity, and from a Boeing perspective, because of all of the skills and intangibles that military spouses bring, they add stability to the workforce. But there's a two-pronged benefit from that as well, because you also add stability to the military. As we all know and have heard, that spouses are oftentimes making the decisions on if their active duty partners stay or go, which then adds stability to the military. But you then add stability to the military from a Boeing perspective. That also then in turn adds stability to the broader defense industrial base, which then allows companies like Boeing and other companies to then better serve the military. So it's a self-fulfilling cycle where you see military spouses as one of those focal points that create the longevity for not only companies, but also the military, and in turn that cycle. And what we are looking at within Boeing from a HR structure perspective, a lot of this has also been said, which is great because a lot of the companies are on the same page. We've created a military spouse network, so an employee resource group last year. Almost immediately, we had hundreds of spouses select into that. We've created self-ID. We're creating the PCS capabilities as well. Also, things that we've talked about job transferability. So, we're working on putting all that structure together so that the experience from a spouse's perspective being in Boeing not only attracts them to the company, but allows them to stay and grow within the company.
Yeah. Justin, I'm going to throw you a curveball real quick.
Okay.
You mentioned self-ID, and I know that we talked about it a little bit earlier on the panel, but for the military spouses in the room, the reality is for a long time, we didn't want to self-ID, right? There was a stereotype that we came into a company and had an expiration date built in. Why is that helpful for Boeing to know when they're hiring military spouses?
Yeah, self-ID is so important for us really in the background because it allows us to know where our military spouses are. It allows us to put better structure around the services that we provide to spouses. It allows us to, invite them to our military spouse network, which then, leads into networking and mentoring opportunities and, career development opportunities. So just by selecting self-ID allows us to create that ecosystem that you feel when you come into the company.
Yeah, excellent. So in 2023, Hiring Our Heroes partnered with Blue Star Families and the Department of Defense to create this 4+1 framework that is an opportunity for employers to be educated on retention strategies, build their own roadmap for how they can lay these out within their organizations. So I'd like to talk a little bit about that in particular. So Mona, we'll start with you. Which of the different pillars has Comcast NBC really focused in on, and why are they important to your strategy?
Sure. Well, I'll focus on transferability and flexibility. We could go on about all four of them, but I'll stick to those two for now. How many employers are in the room who are new to military spouse employment or thinking about strategies for military spouses in the companies? A couple hands, okay. Well, welcome. It's never too late. The first thing I will tell you for a new company, or even a company, even if you're with an employer who is trying to sort out how do we better support military spouses, you probably already have the structures in place. You're just calling them something else. So in terms of flexibility, we have returned to the office 4 days a week for most roles, not all roles. We still have virtual and remote roles. But for the most part, if you are in one of our locations that was traditionally in the office, we have returned 4 days with maximum flexibility. And that doesn't mean that you have to be sitting in your seat from 8:30 to 5 every day. It's work with your supervisor, make sure they understand what the balance is that you need, but try to adhere to the return to office as much as possible. But again, that maximum flexibility means if you're sharing duties with your partner and you have school pickup and you need to leave by 3, that's fine. As long as you are, again, doing your job. If you have a unique situation, like say you're the spouse of a guard or reservist and your spouse is constantly in and out, you may need some extra telework time. That's fine. Just communicate that. It's all about communication. We have, in addition to regular PTO and floating holidays, we have flex leave that is up to the individual to use as needed per their personal situation. So again, military spouses have additional leave. It just might not be called PCS leave. But what we've done is we have gathered all of our benefits and looked at, okay, what are the things military spouses typically need, right? Additional leave, flexible scheduling, backup childcare, access to mental health care, not just for themselves, but for their entire families, because it can be very stressful when the service member is going in and out or there's been a big transition. So under the 3 pillars of our wellness, which are physical, emotional, and financial, we have comprehensive support services. So again, we've done an audit of those and pulled them together to say to military spouses, here is what we have that would, to support you in your career journey here. We also, just going to your self-ID piece, that is critical, as Justin said, for us to identify who the military spouses are in the company, because after onboarding, we do an additional onboarding for all of our military connected teammates, because what we want to do is introduce to them all of these benefits that are relevant to them, because we all know what it's like to onboard, right? Too much information, too much information, too much information. But it's also a way for them to connect with other new military teammates across the company, as well as remind them that we have a military connected employee resource group that we would love for them to join, in addition to other resource groups, because they are part of other communities. Going to the transferability piece. Transferability. Okay, did I use the right word? Sorry. we have a very unique HR services delivery team that is essentially white glove for all of our military connected employees. Another reason why self-ID is so important. And it's called our Military Concierge Service. And it includes spouse transfer assistance, because we do not believe that any spouse should ever have to resign because of a military move. And so we're a massive company, massive global media and technology. Just because you are working, let's say, in an Xfinity footprint, which is limited in the continental US, does not mean that one of our 200 plus other brands doesn't have a presence where you're going. Spectacor has moved to Korea. We have Sky in the UK and in Italy. There is a chance that we may be able to connect you with another team somewhere, because there are some really, really tenured careers in the company, and it's not because they did just one thing or stayed in one region or in one business unit. So we absolutely, again, want to retain that talent and help military spouses grow.
Excellent. Lacey, I'm going to send this same question over to you.
Yeah, so I would say probably the flexible work location and PCS for T-Mobile. I think that they kind of go hand in hand because if you need flexible or portable work location, most likely you're PCSing. So I would say, you know, what's really cool is that last year, May of 2024, is when our PCS paid time off, 40 hours or more, we're flexible on that, went into effect. And it may seem like a small thing, but it's a huge win for a military spouse that's PCSing. That's one less thing you have to worry about. We had a military spouse that moved from our Meridian call center to a remote role in Florida. So not only did she take advantage of our portable work location, but she also took advantage of our PCS paid time off. And she shared with me that had she not had the PCS paid time off option, she would have had to not only take all of her vacation time, but she may have, because her PCS went super smooth and took a little more time. Yeah, took way more time than she expected. So she would have had to apply for a short-term leave of absence, which in the grand scheme of things, you know, she was super grateful that she would have had that option, but that's one more thing that a military spouse would have had to worry about, the paperwork, submitting that, getting it approved. But with the PCS paid time off, her manager submitted the hours and she got paid. So she didn't have to worry about not getting that check, not getting those hours submitted, and then not having a job where she ended up. So I think that it definitely allows that flexibility for our military spouses to be able to land a job. And while not every job can be remote, we have locations all over the country. And you can go to different office locations. You can be flexible and work, you know, in some of our remote business offices or some of our headquarters locations. But that PCS paid time off, that can mean the difference of, you know, taking that short-term leave, not having to use your vacation time, and one less thing that you really have to worry about. So it really does go a long way.
Absolutely. Justin, I'm going to send you the same question, but if you could talk a little bit about the effort and the pathway that organizations and companies take to even get to one of these pillars.
Yeah, because they stole all my thunder on all the questions as well. Well, it's great because we're all on the same track, you know, in terms of the thought process. You know, I was also going to highlight, I mean, even before that, you know, the +1 MSCAP, or whether you're an employer partner, you know, whether you're a small organization or a larger company like us, MSCAP is a phenomenal opportunity. I mean, we have Holly, you know, here from Boeing that many of you have seen a video on, I believe. And you know, the ability to be able to bring individuals into the company and provide them with essentially that head start on boarding to get to understand the companies is a massive benefit, so that they can, you know, hit the ground running faster, understand how they fit into the company and a culture. I believe one creates, you know, a smoother integration into a company, but also, you know, helps them understand their career within a company. And then when you think about, okay, in order to even get to the point where we then provide these opportunities for flexible resources or, transferability, in the background in human resources, what we've also talked a lot about is, one, engagement from the top down. It's very difficult to try to create a grassroots effort, in larger companies and, explain to 1,000 different managers the importance that spouses bring to a company. So we actually, took these concepts to our senior leaders and, got their buy-in, and which makes it much easier to be able to implement these processes. And you've heard it from the CHROs even earlier today.
So we are the only thing standing between this crowd and lunch. So what I'd like to do is wrap up with a quick question down the line, starting with Mona, that what does success look like for you as a leader in this space for your company? What does success look like? And if you have any measurements, what are they?
Okay, so the only thing worse than being between this group and lunch is probably this, between them and drinks, right? So, okay, this. So success is, again, I think it's been said, but number one, culture. Knowing that our company culture is one that holistically is a place where military spouses feel like they belong, they have a place, and they have a place to grow. And that happens top down, bottom up. I will say we're deeply rooted in that because we were founded by a World War II Navy veteran, so the commitment's always been there. But some of our most influential teammates have been from the military community, including military spouses. We have multiple very, very senior people across the company who are military spouses and did not identify as such until recently. So again, it's the cultural piece. I'm proud to say, speaking of measures, in 2024, 25% of our military-connected hires were military spouses. So the self-ID process is working. More military spouses are coming forward and letting us know who they are, but they're also coming to join us in the company. The third piece is, again, the career journey. We did a study on the military-connected career journey to make sure that we are doing the best job we possibly can, all the way from attraction to offboarding and everything in between, and that is what drives retention. So it is seeing the long-term career growth of military spouses. So talk to me in a couple of years, and I'll let you know what that is.
Justin.
Similar to Mona, I would quickly just say that, regardless of if you have senior leadership buy-in or grassroots efforts, at the end of the day, it's all about, does the spouse feel like they have a meaningful career in place within the company? And if, you can measure that, and get positive feedback from that, I think at the end of the day, that's the goal that we're all here for.
Excellent. Lacey?
Yeah, I would say continue to advance the cause with the current military spouses we have, make sure that they're aware of all of these great things that we're doing, because they're worth nothing if the military spouses we have are not aware and taking advantage of that. Continuing to build on that, advance, listen to our military spouses, employees externally, so that we can continue to get better and improve, and linking arms with all of the employers here so that we can work together to continue to build on this just collectively as a group.
Excellent. All right, well, please help me thank these incredible leaders for their time and their innovation. And I believe it's lunchtime.
Our next panel focuses on healthcare and is proudly presented by USAA. Please welcome our moderator. From Hiring Our Heroes, Meredith Lozar.
Good afternoon, everyone. If we can get everybody to start to take their seats, we'll move into the next conversation. Thank you. So it's great to be with you today. My name is Meredith Lozar. I'm Executive Director of Partnerships and an active duty Marine Corps spouse, so Semper Fi to all of us who are out there today. And I am thrilled about the next discussion, which releases the third and final white paper in our healthcare industry series. And there's a fantastic group of folks that are going to join me here in a minute. But if you have been part of one of my discussions before, you know that I have three things when I step up and I start a conversation. So grab your pens, grab your phone, get a piece of paper, write on your agenda, whatever you got handy, because here's your three things. The first of the three things is 50%. The second of the three things is 80%. And the third of the three things is 35%. So what do those three things have to do with the conversation that we're about to have? Well, here we go. So 50%. Can we agree that this half of the room represents 50%? Yeah, we think that's probably pretty fair. Okay, so this half of the room, stand up for me. I know you need to stretch for a second. Stand up for me. So 50%, that is the percentage of roles in the healthcare payer industry that are data analysis. Who knew? So if your mind is blown by that statistic, I'm right there with you. Oftentimes as military spouses, we don't pursue an industry or an opportunity because we think we aren't qualified. Today's your day to bust through that myth. All right, you can sit back down. So then what about the 80%? If you didn't know this, you will here in just a second. 80% of military spouses are willing or have upskilled and reskilled to a growth opportunity or a more nimble industry. So if you're sitting there thinking that the healthcare industry doesn't have a whole lot to do with what you're currently doing, think again, because this talent pool applies to any industry. And 80% of them will upskill or reskill into the role that you would love for them to take. And then what's the final one, that 35%? 35% of the roles in the industry that we are about to talk about with this conversation do not require a college degree. So as we think about many of our military spouses who are coming in with a high school diploma looking for that very first opportunity, this may just be the one for them. So without further ado, let me bring out the fantastic panelists that are going to do a deep dive on this conversation with us. So let's take the first couple minutes and just introduce everybody. Megan, you want to start us off?
Sure. So Megan McGrath, head of our HR diligence teams for mergers and acquisitions, and my husband is active duty Navy, so I am a proud military spouse.
I'm Rory Brocious. I'm a partner at Cicero MGT, where I lead our government and social impact work. I'm a member of a military family and was a Marine Corps spouse for 17 years.
James Sasso. I am the general counsel of CareSource, which is a managed care company that focuses on government programs. I am not a veteran. My favorite movie growing up was Top Gun. I wanted to be Maverick. And I walked up to the recruiting desk in high school and they said, "You're too damn tall." I left deflated.
Hi, my name's Dave Lee. I'm the Director of Military Community Initiatives at CVS and retired Army.
Awesome. Thanks, Dave. Okay, they said I was a moderator. I'm starting to feel like maybe I'm going to be a circus wrangler here. So here we go. Rory, I really want to start with you. This is our third and final in this white paper series focused on the healthcare industry. Talk about the payer industry and really what this white paper means.
Yeah, so this was a really sort of strategic and timely effort across the three white papers. And as you look at the payer industry and seeing how quickly it is changing, you're seeing a lot of people retiring from this industry, and the industry isn't able to fill the gaps that they leave behind. And so I think, as you mentioned earlier, spouses sometimes count themselves out of jobs based solely on the industry or the name of the company because they think, oh, there's really not a fit for me here. It's healthcare, it's science, it's whatever it may be. And as we look at these enormous enterprises, there is literally a role for everyone across this entire industry, and those enormous talent gaps exist in all sections of these companies. And so as we looked at these industries and these sub-industries and really started to dig in and map things out, we were able to really come across and look at the full ecosystem of what's offered both through government and nonprofit partners and say, okay, in addition to the skills and knowledge and capabilities that you as a spouse have, where are the other benefits that you have that you can stack up to do that upskilling and reskilling to get into the positions that are available within this industry? And so it was a really great opportunity for us to dig in really deeply and look at the nuance of a particular industry and see just how relevant it could be for military spouses who are looking for good careers with longevity.
Yeah, thanks for that, Rory. And I think I'd love for you to foot stomp some of that, Megan, because you all funded this. J&J came to the table and said, look, we think thought leadership is incredibly important. It moves the sector forward. Talk about why you all made that decision and what this means.
Yeah, so I've had the privilege of attending this conference now. This is my third year, twice as a participant and now representing J&J on the stage. And to your point, part of the reason why we funded this important research is because it so perfectly aligns with our credo and our purpose, which is all about helping the communities and patients that we serve. And this important research that your team pulled out has helped to lessen and eliminate those barriers in the pharmaceutical and healthcare industry and now in the payer industry to arm companies with the data points and insights to make a business case. And what I'd love to see going forward is other companies like J&J and other industries funding future white papers and series going forward so that, as I mentioned, we can arm companies with the data points and the insights to make business cases to bring in more military spouses in this room and at home into the workforce.
I love that. And you talked about the barriers. And I think, Dave, that is really a great segue for you because you at CVS and Aetna were critical to bringing this research forward. Talk about what it means to you as a team, as someone who's in this work every day in the payer industry, working to build a military-connected talent pipeline.
Yeah, thanks. Great question. So, does anybody know what the difference is if you lack research or something like this paper? What you end up dealing with? You deal with two words, I think. I think is not a good way to drive a business. You need to understand the landscape, from a people perspective. Since 2000, there have been over 400 academic research papers published on racial and gender discrimination. In that same time period, there's been 5 published about veterans. And I am not aware of a single one published about bias in terms of military spouses. So having some form of reference that we can go back to is critical for not just the hiring leaders and for the company, but it's also important, as Rory brought up, for people that are thinking about different industries so that it's not I think or I don't think I fit in this organization. It will help people think differently about where there may be paths for employment. And as we heard, while we're celebrating that military spouse unemployment is down to 20%, it should be way, way lower than that. And helping inform of where these opportunities are is going to be critical to make that happen.
And can I just pop in as the research team on this? I want to say we recognize white papers and research actually don't drive change if they're not implementable. And so as we put these reports together, our hope is that the tips and tricks and the recommendations that are included in the very, very long report with lots of financial modeling and workforce mapping, that it is actually useful. And so as you look at these things and think about how you can either implement a best practice or learn more about what the community brings in terms of talent, that's where we really move the needle. So we are always happy to provide the research and technical support, but we recognize that it needs to be implemented to actually bring that number down from 20.
Yeah, and I think that's a great segue. So on your table, you have a one-pager about this research. And if you are following me, you notice that some of those statistics were on that one-pager. But what else is there is a QR code. So if you would like the tips and the tricks and how you can apply this in your industry or as a military spouse to your career journey or as you look for that talent pool, scan the QR code. There are some really great one-sheeters within the larger paper that are going to help you to really conceptualize what does this mean to me as a military spouse who maybe wasn't thinking about the payer industry before this conversation. You're going to find some great tips and tricks from the CareSource team on how to really look at roles in the payer industry. And if you're sitting there thinking, well, hold on, healthcare industry doesn't really apply to me. When you look at how you can apply this research to the healthcare industry, you're going to see some really obvious ways that if you're in finance, if you're in defense, this can apply to you too. So thanks for calling that out, Rory. And I think, James, that's a perfect segue for you from a CareSource perspective. So when we talk about CareSource, one of the things I loved is it's healthcare with heart. And your team really gave us their time and expertise while we were writing this white paper alongside CVS and J&J to talk about your military-connected talent commitments and what that all means to you. So would you like to chat with the audience about that?
Sure. So the thing I think to take away, I mean, a lot of people talked about today about what they're doing from an HR standpoint to hire military spouses. I think it's more important to speak to the spouses themselves and say, I mean, the healthcare industry is overly regulated, right? It's very, very complex. But I think the one thing to take from this white paper is you don't need a background in it to jump into a career in healthcare. In fact, I think specifically to the spouses that your life experiences and core competencies lead you to be perfect for the healthcare industry. And I'm just going to read a couple of CareSource's core competencies and just see if it hit home a little bit. Drive execution, influence others, adaptability, and pursue personal excellence. That speaks to a lot of people, I bet, in this room. And you don't need to be a healthcare expert or to understand this industry to jump in at an entry-level job and then let your core competencies speak for themselves and you'll rise through the ranks. At CareSource specifically, and I'm going to speak about the HR perspectives, once someone is at our company, we do have internal career mobility recruiter, and that mobility recruiter will help review your resume, help you jump up the ladder, do mock interviews, and just give career advice. And that's available to all our employees, including military spouses. Additionally, we have a military veteran support union. The other thing too that I just want to note from the white paper, and I think you probably have read about this in the papers regarding healthcare, is data is king now. So if you have any background in data, AI, and everything that's going on with that, this is where our industry is going, and there is a place for you.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, James. And you know, one of the other things that is throughout this white paper that you'll see is service to others. So really expanding on what James just talked about, many military spouses have the qualities that a company like CareSource, CVS, J&J is looking for. And some of that also for you, thinking about it from a spouse lens, that brings a meaningful career is service to others. And so often we look for that in our career opportunities. So this could be an industry that can really drive that home. And with that, Roy, I want to come back to you because I think one of the things we're talking about here, and it's really underlying, is that sometimes we have a bias against, you know, a certain opportunity or industry. It comes up and we think, nope, that's not for me. But really what we found out throughout this white paper series was there's room for everyone in the healthcare industry. So talk a little bit about that bias piece.
Sure, and I know we've talked about this before, Meredith, both you and I have had really non-traditional career paths as military spouses do. Mine started as a spouse working in cancer research. I have a degree in philosophy, y'all. That is not cancer research. But the job that was available to me at the time was as a research administrator for a CEO of a cancer research firm. And so I think you need to sort of open the aperture in your career exploration as you're thinking about what's available to you, and it can be really hard. You move somewhere, you PCS, you've been applying for 3 months, there's nothing, and it's just really disheartening. And sometimes it's about, okay, what is different, what is new, what's out there that maybe doesn't sing to me right away, but there might be a place for me there. And I mentioned data analytics earlier, and I know everyone on the panel has, and we talk about how military spouses are so flexible and willing to upskill and reskill. And part of this white paper, as I said, was looking across the ecosystem of what's available to you. And the example that came to mind was our friends at Grow with Google and their data analytics career cert.
Yes.
That career cert is easily done. You can get through it in a couple of months. It gives you the really practical skills you need for entry-level roles in data analytics. There are hundreds of thousands of those jobs available within this sector. And so as you look to sort of grow and learn and maybe explore something new, that's out there for you. And that's just one example of a way that you can sort of make that pivot. And sometimes we have to make those pivots. It's not an easy choice, but sometimes it's what we have to do. I would also say that as we looked at the breadth of things that are available, customer engagement in this industry alone has increased 8% year over year. So that means every year more customer service, more customer engagement, more call centers. Those are all things that are standing up and are really able to be sort of those portable and remote opportunities, which we know can be really important for our military spouses. And I would just say that only 20% of the jobs in this entire industry require that health and science background. So take your philosophy degree and find something great, or some other background that you might have, but there is a place for you. Often the barrier isn't qualification, it's awareness, and there's two sides to that coin. It's for spouses and it's for our employers. Employers don't necessarily know how amazing this talent pool is, and spouses don't always see themselves in the roles. And so if we can address that awareness barrier, I think we'll move a little bit further down the line.
I agree. And so to drive a couple of those points home, if you are a military spouse with us today, the program that Rory is talking about with the Google Data Analytics Certificate is the Career Forward program. It is available to you. It is asynchronous, so on your own learning, on your own time, something that you can do in between all of the other things in your life and really open some doors to new opportunities. And the other thing I'll say is, as an employer in this room today that's maybe not in the healthcare industry, it is about making your industry more accessible. And so when you do look at the white paper, you'll find those tips and tricks. How do you take that and apply it to your industry so that we can overcome some of that bias that exists with military spouses? It's making that more accessible. So James, I want to come to you because what your team did when we chatted with them about this white paper was they gave us some tips and tricks for people who were looking for roles in the payer industry and maybe had not been part of this industry previously. Can you share a little bit of those insights?
Yeah, well, I've heard many times, and many of the companies that were up here were talking about their mission driven. I think in healthcare that's specifically important. And you get that from military spouses and veterans. How many people have had a bad healthcare experience? Calling customer service, can't get the answer, provider, like
lots of hands, all the hands.
That's a dangerous question to be asking.
That is.
All right, how many have had a good customer experience?
Yay, okay, other
Healthcare
hands.
experience. Okay. The difference with that, right, is passion. It is showing up your job and caring what you do. So in speaking about the mission, it's a differentiating factor. CareSource, not-for-profit company, our mission statement is we're here to improve the lives and the health of our members. And people that show up to work and want to do that make a difference in the healthcare field. A customer service representative stays on the phone until the member is satisfied and has their question answered. A care coordinator in the field is social determinants of health, is assisting someone in need find all of the different avenues in their society or in their neighborhood that can assist them to getting to a better health. So, I mean, we look for people that focus on duty, I'm going back to core competencies and saying it a little differently. So duty, purpose, and teamwork. And I don't know what my colleagues actually said to you, but I'm going to put my money where my mouth is. Legal departments, right, are not as big as most departments in some of the larger companies. In my career, I've hired 2 attorneys that have been freaking awesome. One was a reservist, JAG attorney, no health care experience at all. So going to what I was saying earlier with, you don't need to know healthcare to jump into healthcare. He was a JAG officer, and what do JAG officers do, right? They have huge caseloads, they get handed a file, they show up, and they try cases. It's perfect for healthcare. We don't know what's going on half the time. So he actually turned out to be an absolutely excellent attorney. He became our Medicare compliance officer, then the Medicaid compliance officer, and now I think he's at Amazon Health. Again, came right out of JAG to my previous employer and had a wonderful career. And then secondly, and I'm going to embarrass her, Audrey, who's in the audience. So going to identification of a military spouse, we had a junior, less seasoned position open, and as the general counsel, I got presented the finalists. And Audrey was amongst those finalists, and there was a gap in her resume. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, okay, Duke Law, this, that, education's great. Well, what's up with that? So we start to talk, and she had a wonderful personality, and I'm like, okay, you have no healthcare experience. What's up with the gap? And she had a wonderful response. She said, my husband, we were just married, was special operations medic, and he just retired, and she was at actually a very large law firm, and large law firms, they do very well. And she took time off to go and spend time with him. And she heard about CareSource and that we were doing this TRICARE demonstration. And I'm not going to toot CareSource's horn on that. If you're interested, look it up. And she goes, well, the reason that I'm applying for this job is that I have TRICARE and I want to change it. And I saw this opportunity, I saw CareSource, and I want to come here. And we took a leap of faith. She, again, had no healthcare experience. I bought her a book that I teach law school classes. I bought her the book on healthcare and sent it to her, and just took a lot of time, I think you'll attest to that, to just teach her. I could teach law and how to be a good lawyer to anybody. I cannot teach the social skills. I cannot teach drive. I cannot teach the ability to adapt. And military spouses and veterans have that, or the vast majority of them. So take a leap of faith.
Thanks for that, James. And I think it's the perfect segue. We have time for just 2 more questions. And Megan, that's a segue to you, I think. Top 2 things that you think about when you think about your journey with J&J that you would want to tell this audience.
So top 2, and I'll say I was a history major who started my career in finance and moved into healthcare, so it's possible. I would say in terms of structural support within J&J, the mentors and sponsors that have shined a light on me or for me, being remote for the better part of 10 years and continuing to grow my career has been phenomenal. And as you heard about in the white paper, we also have award-winning Veterans Leadership Council, military spouse chapters, and support like 10 days of paid leave that I've used when my husband has had deployments to keep our family intact. And as we had heard from Lacey and others, not having to do a fun vacation prior to deployment. But internally for me, it's all about perseverance and never giving up and grit. And we've heard that time and time again today. I learned that growing up as a Buffalo Bills fan in Western New York, going to 4 straight Super Bowls and losing. And I learned it even more so as a military spouse, as my husband's deployments were extended 2, 3, and 4 times. And that's the competitive advantage you can't teach, as I've learned in HR. You only learn it as a military spouse. And finally, I'll share one story, which to me encapsulates why we need more military spouses in the workforce. So last year we were coming back from spring break. We have 3 young kids. Our youngest has mild cerebral palsy. She was sitting in my lap on this flight back from California, finally fell asleep on this long plane, when suddenly we had some turbulence and blood started coming out of her nose. I was calm on the outside, but given all these medical challenges she had, I was a bit nervous. And out of nowhere, this woman came up from behind me, wet wipes in one hand and paper towels in the other, and she said, "Don't worry, ma'am. I'm a military spouse. I've got this." That, to me, is why we need more military spouses in the workforce.
Yes, yes. And so, Dave, you get to bring us home. Why military spouse talent, and why now more than ever?
Well, I don't think it's why now. This has been something that's been important for a long time. We need to continue moving forward in this space. I had to step in for a military spouse from CVS that was going to be on this panel, a VP for our call centers. And it kind of built off of a little bit of what James was talking about. As we get better in the healthcare industry of being able to provide quality customer service and case management, it's important to have people that understand the communities you serve. Can we all agree that the military has its own language and its own culture? And so just think about how important it is to have people that can speak that language, because we know, data shows that veterans are going to be more inclined to open up to other veterans and military spouses, people that can relate to where they've been. And so if we're going to help address healthcare issues as community care becomes more of a potential opportunity for veterans, then it's important that we have individuals in the healthcare companies that understand the community.
Yeah, that's great, Dave. That concludes our conversation. We would love to chat with you more, so please do find us this afternoon, and let's get a round of applause for this great panel.
Our experience with military life is similar to so many other families. We moved from place to place. It's been a wonderful ride. But as a military spouse, it was hard to find a career to call my own. With Steve retiring in a few months, I have the opportunity to start my own transition into a possible career. I have a part-time position working in retail, and I knew that I needed to maybe upskill. So I recently completed the Google Career Certificate in Digital Marketing and E-commerce. I feel officially official. Although I have the certificate and I possess all the skills, I don't know which roles to apply for.
Google has graduated over 1 million career certificate learners, but we found that it's tough for some of them to figure out which jobs to go for.
The job market is changing really rapidly, and jobs themselves are also changing.
There's so many variables at play, and there's so much information out there.
And that's a place we thought AI could be really helpful in not only helping people make sense of what they bring to the table, but what different paths they could pursue.
Career Dreamer is an AI experiment where we take Gen AI and apply it to career exploration. It uses large language models to identify patterns and connections between people's skills, experiences, and interests, and different career paths that are unique and personalized to them. In addition to the data-driven results from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, we also lean on Gemini to help surface more emerging or creative fields.
Basically all of these options that we can go.
It was really important for us to familiarize ourselves with the struggles and the challenges that job seekers face today.
So we tested with students, with veterans, with military spouses and moms re-entering the workforce.
Yeah.
It sounds cheesy, but it kind of felt magical. The Career Dreamer tool was really helpful because it was a fresh perspective into what's possible and what's out there. I do kind of feel like I am one of those young people on a college campus who does have their life ahead of them. That's something that I thought I was too late, but it's not.
next fireside chat highlights Google Impact, an initiative driving meaningful change through technology, innovation, and philanthropy. Please welcome back from Hiring Our Heroes, Elizabeth O'Brien, and the CEO of Google Public Sector, Karen Dayhutt.
All right. Hi, everyone. How are you doing? Wow, what a video.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. I get emotional watching it every time.
Do you? Yeah. Anybody else get emotional watching that?
You feel it, right?
It always reminds me, I think as we progress in our careers, sometimes it helps me remember I need to stop and think and dream about what the future is and what the possibilities are. And I feel like, as we watch that and the power of AI and how quickly everything's evolving, when we think about our dreams, it feels like such a great place to start to talk about your own journey and what inspired you to originally raise your hand and serve this great country.
Well, first of all, Liz, thank you for this event. I mean, it's amazing. And thank you to Hiring Our Heroes. What an amazing organization. Just do so much for our military and military connected. I'm so thankful for you and the entire organization. My story is probably a very familiar one to many in the audience. I was born of 2 Italian immigrants, and my dad, at a very early age, decided he needed to do something with his life, and he, joined the Navy at a very young age. And married my mom shortly thereafter and traveled the world with eventually 3 daughters. And I was the youngest of the 3, and it was super fun. What I didn't realize at the time, and you and I have talked a little bit about this, Liz, what I didn't realize at the time is how hard that was on my mom. And, I think that is something that all of us can recognize in ourselves or in our lives or in a coworker, et cetera. And so I find these kinds of events where we can be open and honest and talk about these things are super important to know that you're not alone and that certainly our experiences were not one of a kind. So fast forward, my dad serves 42 years in the Navy, and it seemed like a lifetime, but I was in college, and most of my friends were going into banking, which, to be honest with you, sounded horrifically boring. And so I called my dad and said, I think it's time for me to join the Navy. And he was excited after he said, I just paid for 4 years of college, and now you're deciding to go in the Navy. But, and my story is simply that my sister and I joined the Navy. All 3 of us married military members, 1 rogue Air Force person in that whole crew, so that was interesting. And what I have taken with me throughout my career is there is something incredibly powerful about standing and raising your right hand and swearing to support and defend the Constitution. And it is an incredibly meaningful moment, not just for the human raising the right hand, but for everybody around them. And so I'm super thankful for my time in the Navy, and I'm super thankful that my parents brought me into it.
Thank you for sharing your journey, especially as a Navy kid and brat, and how it seemed fun. And it's always so touching to me. And I think when we did our last fireside chat, you were actually making me tear up when you were talking about your mom and the impact. And it's so important and so valuable when our military kids move into roles where they can then make change for the next generation. And so I just want to make sure that we thank you for what you do on a daily basis and for the empathy and compassion and opportunities that you take to move the needle to advance opportunities for military spouses in this room.
I appreciate you saying that, and I really do deeply appreciate it. You equally have done an amazing amount of moves, 9 moves, I think you were saying. and raising kids, and this is all, you know, a tough thing to do. I think for me, what I didn't realize until later in life are the sacrifices that my mom made. And that is what was so striking to me as I joined the military. One of my closest friends, male colleague, my best friend in the Navy, still my best friend, and lives literally not far from my husband and I. He got married and married a young woman who had no knowledge of the military. Ohio, was working at Notre Dame University at the time, and we're stationed at Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, which, this was a while ago, but it's still not much better than it is today. I don't know if any of you have been in Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, but it is a very small military town. And I watched her go through the anxiety and the challenges of being a military wife. And it was only then that I realized that's what I saw in my mom. And so that is what has made me just such an advocate for this community and to really do what we can to support this community. It's so important what you do each and every day.
Thank you so much for that. And you know, you talked about raising your right hand to defend the Constitution of our great nation. Can you share a little bit about what you learned in the Navy, how you developed as a leader, and how it's played a significant role in your leadership today? Because what you do and what your career journey has been tremendously significant, especially as you have had roles that support Department of Defense and Army, Navy, you know, whatever.
Go Navy.
Navy.
You know, I think that as a young 21-year-old joining the Navy, you have an expectation for what it looks like, and it was completely different than what I expected. You gain an appreciation for definition and timelines and process and leadership and discipline and meaning to each thing that you do. I had a perspective that being in the military was going to be much more about physical demand and physical expectation. And yet what I found, it was much more mental. It was much more about creating a sense of discipline and understanding what my contributions would be. It was really interesting. And so I reflect on that a lot, because as I think about, you know, being in the Navy, it's a very large organization, a large bureaucracy, a lot of moving pieces, people at all different levels, people of all different skill sets. That is any industry you walk into today. It is Google at its finest. And so the fact that I learned that between the ages of 21 and 29 have set me up really in super positive stead to be able to lead today. You know, I led men twice my age. I mean, as a 21-year-old, I mean, it was scary. I had this command master sergeant, retired from the Marine Corps, who was my second in command at my first duty station at Camp Lejeune. Imagine when I walked in the door. I am 22 years old. I know nothing. And this command master sergeant, who has 40 years of experience, he's going to listen to me? I mean, we had our moments. And the good moments we had and the bad moments we had taught me so much about leadership, about communication, about how to get the best out of people by being the best of yourself, by showing up. And that was all because I decided to join the Navy. I would not have known that had I not had that real visceral experience.
I heard Marines are really warm and loving.
I'm sorry, say that again.
Marines are really warm and loving?
Yeah, not so much. Well, Jim and I think I shared this with you the last time we were talking, Liz. We really did have it out at 5:30 a.m. in his office one very early morning. And we ended up being very close friends until the day he died, and he and his wife, his wife and I still exchange Christmas cards. So there is true meaning, and he does have a heart of gold, but it was hard to uncover that.
I believe it. I always love the stories that tie our community together for generations, for decades upon decades. So thank you for sharing that. And I will remain rooted in the part that you were 21 years old and he had served for 40, and how there is value in everybody that you interact with, and how you can learn in corporate America and exchange ideas and help teammates grow. We have been very fortunate for many years now to partner with Google in a variety of ways. We don't get to do what we do without that partnership, and it has been very powerful. You mentioned Google Public Sector's mission. We know it's deeply rooted in service, working closely with the military and government agencies, but how does that direct engagement with the military ecosystem inform Google's approach to workforce development, especially for military spouses transitioning service members?
Well, I say this with not, it may come out wrong. I don't think you can understand the military service unless you really are rooted in it. I think many people say thank you for your service and are so grateful that we have this incredible military, but they don't innately understand what it means to PCS every 2 to 3 years. They don't understand what it means when your spouse deploys for a 6-month tour. They don't understand what it means to uproot your family and your children and schools. And so this idea of being rooted, it doesn't mean you've served or you've been part of the service, but rooted in the organization of defense and the military helps you have an appreciation for the depth of that commitment. And when you have that understanding, you can create better programs for the military member as well as the military connected. I was sitting in the green room watching many of the prior speakers, and the programs that are available today for the military connected community is just simply amazing. They didn't exist 10, 15, 20 years ago. And so Google Public Sector is all about bringing Google technology to the defense mission, the national security mission, but it also allows us to be rooted in that dedication and commitment. And we have a very vibrant VetNet community, that's our ERG for our veterans at Google, that also are made up of military connected, that routinely remind us of what is expected of an industry or a company to serve the community. They continually remind us that families have to PCS, that how do their jobs transition? What are we doing to improve that experience? That we don't necessarily have reciprocity of professional certifications. What kind of training can we offer that improves that capacity to move from place to place? So really owning the challenges and coming up with very deliberate responses to those challenges, I think that is part of what we try to do. I don't think we have it perfectly, but we really do try to pay attention to that.
And there's nothing like getting that direct feedback from the folks that are living it and experiencing it. And I think back to years ago when we first started this partnership and how much the space has evolved. And one of the first projects we worked with Google on was really building that military spouse roadmap, opportunities to entrepreneurship. But I always remain that graphic is in my head, the military spouse roadmap, and if you haven't seen it, we can send folks the link, but it is infinity, right? And so how we have to reinvent ourselves, how every time we move, maybe the opportunity in the same industry isn't there, but that roadmap so clearly laid out, well, every time we move, these are the steps that we have to take.
I often think of a career for a military-connected individual as on-ramps and off-ramps. You know, this notion that you have an on-ramp maybe as you get a commitment or a job at a place, and then you PCS and you're taking this off-ramp. And that is incredibly challenging. And one of the things we've not cracked as an industry is job sharing and part-time roles. We have some of that at Google, but it's not perfect. And I don't think anybody has really cracked that code. This notion of job sharing would solve so much of the challenge that we see in the military-connected community, where you have family commitments, your spouse is deployed, you have your child commitments, and how do you share a job so that you're working but not working full-time. So I think that there is still work to do, but that on-ramp, off-ramp thing, how do we make that less of an on and an off and maybe just a detour? We have not perfected that yet.
I appreciate that reference to on and off ramp. You know, the only time in my career I've taken a real break is when we lived in Germany. And you know from our discussions, I used to coach college basketball. It's fiercely competitive, and so who you start with your peers.
Can you believe she was a basketball coach?
Because I'm 5'4". But when you start with your peers and you watch them advance, you're competing against them as well. And I remember the time in Germany, it was the first time I could say, there's nothing I can do, right? Like, it's not my failure that I'm not in the workforce or I'm not advancing, but it gave me the space to rethink or to think about how I reinvent myself when we move back, recognizing I can't stay in the my chosen industry. But what I have discovered over the last 10 years is these nonlinear paths aren't just for military spouses. We see it over and over again for people that are in the workforce as they embrace caregiving, as they have children, as they navigate different stages of life. So I hope that we get to a place where we can create the job sharing opportunities in your industry, because that would be tremendous.
Tremendous. It would be. And I so want to foot stomp what you said, that these are experiences that people have in the workforce today, period. It's not just military connected. You all may experience it in a more fierce and consistent way, but others also face it. My advice is, and I remember back to my best friend, his new spouse at Camp Lejeune, my advice to her at the time was, Kate, you're an incredibly talented professional who've done amazing things in your career. What is your elevator pitch? Because we are put in rooms. You are in a room with us right now. You are put in rooms where you have an opportunity to shape an outcome. What's your elevator pitch? What would you say to me if I said, what are you looking for? Do you have that ready to go? Do you have a ready resume? Do you have a resume that is up to date, ready to go, everything on it that you can send me tomorrow? Little things, thinking about always getting your next job when you have a job, I think that is super important for the military-connected community. I think that maintaining your network and refreshing that network routinely. We are now in your network. We are on LinkedIn. Ping us. You know, let us know you were here today. Let us know who you are. Keep that network vibrant and alive. I guarantee you it will benefit you in the long term. And so I say all of this because I have 2 young daughters, and this is the advice I give to them. You know, it's not any different than I think what they go through. Yours is just that much more fierce because it's this regular drumbeat of PCS and moving and changing.
And you hit the nail on the head. Our social capital decreases every time we move, and we have to start over and build that network. But in this virtual age, you have an opportunity to accelerate those interactions by leveraging social media and AI that is out there currently. And there's nothing more important, I think, than to finding a pathway to a job than that social network. As we look ahead, you've touched on the power, and we've seen the power of tools that use AI, like we saw in Career Dreamer, and we were talking backstage just how quickly everything's accelerating and trying to keep up and trying to keep ahead. How do you see AI and ongoing digital transformation reshaping the landscape of opportunities, specifically for military spouses?
Well, this is the same week as Google's I/O conference, which is happening out in California. And I mention that only because there have been tens, if not hundreds, of announcements coming out around AI and technology. And it is really important to stay up to date on what is happening. Whether you read the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times or you listen to podcasts, all of that is super important. AI plays a critical role. You saw Career Dreamer. That's only going to get that much better. Soon, there will be technology where you can put your resume in and you can put the want ads in, and it can connect you to those hiring managers seamlessly. Imagine that. So you understanding that technology is going to be critically important for how it can help you. I'm going to give you one tip. Yesterday we announced Notebook LM. Notebook LM. It's an app in the App Store. You can put all sorts of content, download content into Notebook LM. PDFs, YouTube videos, articles from the web, and it will create a podcast for you. There's no easier way to keep up with things than that. First of all, if you're a runner or you work out or you whatever, it's a great tool for just learning new things each and every day. And I would say commit 20 minutes a day to listening to something new. Believe me, the content that's out there is overwhelming, but 20 minutes a day, you would really stay up to date and keep abreast of what is happening. And I do think technology is going to be a game changer, not only in finding jobs, but also being able to execute jobs. Google does all of these free, I heard many of the previous panelists talking about the Google career certificates and free to this community. Please reach out, learn more about that, whether it's our AI toolkit or our cybersecurity certificate. It's great ways of both learning and as well as just sort of staying up to date on the technology.
Yeah, and you bring up a great point. Certainly our Career Forward partnership has been instrumental in creating positive job outcomes for military spouses and veterans as well. It is the opportunity to upskill and utilize the certificates that you've been kind enough to gift to us to distribute to this community. We have had thousands and thousands of learners go through. We've been able to track positive outcomes, and we also, thanks to your great partnership, have the ability to place military spouses and veterans in actual fellowships where they go and work for a company while they are completing their certification. So that for us is a game changer and has been for many in this community. So thank you for that partnership.
It's our pleasure. And look, we want to be doing more, Liz. Honestly, I think we recently, in the last 5 years, have had 2 significant benefit enhancements for our military connected community. Last year, we announced within Google that military connected members would have default to yes when they move, that they would be able to transition with their job, or to a job where they are going, because Google, the fortunate thing about Google is we're global. So that was huge from giving confidence to military connected members that they would be able to transition with their job. The other was the paid leave for PCS, and that happened back in 2020, but all super important programs for this community. Not only it's somewhat selfish too, let's be honest. It's good for you, it's good for us too. I mean, if we have an employee in great standing, why would we want to lose that person? And I think this is what more of our industry partners need to understand and learn and take advantage of, because this community is so devoted to doing the right thing via their jobs, to maintain those jobs, to continue to learn. How can we be doing even more?
You know, for so long, you know, back in 2011 through 14, kind of that tagline was, you know, hire because it's the right thing to do. And you and Google have helped shift that narrative to hire because you're going to make the business better. You're going to make it stronger, faster, more profitable. So thank you for reminding everybody about the fact that companies are here because they value what you bring to the table. I know that time is winding down, and I want to give you an opportunity for one more closing comment, but also want to recognize that our partnership with Google stretches from Grow with Google to .org, and the teammates that we get to interact with at Google, from Brona and Kevin and Ben and Amanda, who's not here, and Rob, who's in Austin. It is everybody working together across different lanes of business to make sure they're creating opportunity for people to go to work because it matters. So thank you for leading just such a tremendous team. I want to give you an opportunity, one last word of advice for everybody in the room.
Do not get discouraged or give up. It is so important what each of you are doing. It is important what our military does to support this country and nations all over the globe. Think positively. We are here to help. I am personally committed to this mission. We are absolutely dedicated and devoted to trying to make sure that your lives resemble the lives you want them to be in terms of your professional parts, and that when you PCS and when you transition, that you have success in doing so. So please reach out and let us know how we can help.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Presenting this year's Community Impact of the Year Award. Please welcome to the stage, from Hiring Our Heroes, Jenny Lynn Stroop, and from Lowe's, Michael Piper.
Honored to present the 2025 Military Spouse Community Impact Award, which recognizes a region that exemplifies what it means to build a strong, aligned support system for military spouses and their employment goals. This year's recipient is the Hampton Roads region, a place I'm proud to call home. As a native and an active duty military spouse currently stationed in this community, I've seen firsthand the power of the people in this region who always rise to the occasion when it comes to supporting the military spouse community. Home to 18 military installations across 7 cities and representing all 6 service branches, Hampton Roads could operate in silos. Instead, it stands out for its remarkable unity. The region's leaders have built a connected ecosystem where collaboration is the standard, not the exception. We are proud to recognize Hampton Roads for its unwavering commitment to military spouse empowerment and its dedication to the hard, necessary work of community alignment.
Thanks, Jenny Lynn. At Lowe's, supporting military families is not just a point of pride. It is a core part of who we are across the country, and essentially in communities like Hampton Roads. We see the strength, resilience, and incredible potential of military spouses every day. That's why this award means as much as it does. Hampton Roads has built something truly special, a network of employers, organizations, and leaders who understand when you invest in military families, you strengthen the entire community. This region continues to raise the bar for what's possible when collaboration and commitment come together. It's a model for others to follow, and today we are proud to recognize that collective impact. At the forefront of this success is Sultan Camps. His dedicated leadership is bringing together stakeholders from across the region, breaking down silos and aligning efforts. He has helped ensure military spouses receive thoughtful, coordinated employment support that meets them where they are. It is with deep appreciation that we present the 2025 Military Spouse Community Impact Award to the Hampton Roads region. Please join me in welcoming Sultan, who is accepting the award on behalf of the community.
Our next panel discussion, Cultivating a Thriving Ecosystem, Focus on Childcare, Community, and Beyond, is presented by Booz Allen. Please welcome our moderator from Booz Allen, Tom Downs.
Thank you. All right, I got 3 great teammates that are going to join me this morning or this afternoon. If I could please have Eileen, Kadish, and Meg please join me on the stage. All right. Well, again, thank you for your time this afternoon. We're going to talk to you about a very, very important topic, obviously, to all of us. And with that in mind, I have a brief overview that I'd like to give everyone, and I'll, of course, introduce you to my panelists again. So with that in mind, the conversation today is going to be about not just hiring military spouses, how can we bring them to our organizations so they can indeed thrive in our organizations. So with that in mind, the biggest part of that is going to be accessible childcare, and also, making sure we have those vibrant military communities within the organization. We heard a lot about business resource groups and employee communities, and of course, with the other, kind of long pole in the tent is how we can help enable military spouses to grow and foster within our organizations. Outside of that, I'm thrilled to be joined by my 3 new teammates, outstanding leaders within their respective fields of business and driving work across industries. I'm looking forward to hearing their perspectives, and I'd now like to introduce my teammates. Again, we have Eileen from the Chamber of Commerce, we have Kadish from Deloitte, and we have Meg from Fiserv. All right, so the first question. All right. Okay, with that in mind, I'll start with Eileen. So with that, why is childcare such a critical and often overlooked pillar when we talk about military spouse career sustainability?
Thank you. I think actually childcare is a critical aspect for all working parents, and we all deal with this on a different bases. And as a working mom also, I feel the strain that we all go through. I think that we need to remember that childcare is part of how we all have stable families and stable home lives, those stable home lives allow us to be engaged and enthusiastic workers and part of a workforce that is able to really bring our best, both to our companies, or in this case, the military, as well as our communities and our country. So I think that sometimes that gets lost, and we forget how important it is to have that stability, especially in a world right now where the majority of families are dual income parent households. And so we have to remember that that structure needs support and needs engagement from all of us, and needs some guiding aspects and levers that can help us all be successful as we keep that stability for our families, our workforce, and our jobs.
Yeah, prior to joining you on the stage today, we were in the back in the green room kind of sharing our own stories about our child care dilemmas and opportunities for fixing some things. And Eileen was speaking about, she lives in New York City and she has 4 children, and you can imagine the cost of daycare in Manhattan for 4 children. I'm here in Alexandria, I have 2, Meg's got 1, so we were kind of sharing our stories there about the cost and implications, and just that dreaded phone call. You're like, oh, it's daycare. Yeah. What do we do now? What's going to happen next? So good deal. So now with Kadish, with Deloitte, obviously, kind of fun fact, my wife's also at Deloitte. And with that, known for their commitment in career growth and leadership development, how does the focus extend to military spouses at Deloitte?
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. I'll say first that when looking for career opportunities, starting at Deloitte, I was really attracted to Deloitte being a military-friendly employer and having a vast community of military spouses and military-connected practitioners within the firm. I'll note that for Deloitte, the Military Spouse Initiative is a community of hundreds of military spouses across the various practices that and services that Deloitte offers. And I think through that boasts the opportunity for mentorship, sponsorship, and stewardship around the resources, programs, and policies and opportunities across such a large organization. Having a population of people that are living the experience, have lived the experience, or understand the experience of a military spouse or military-connected individual, I think is extremely pivotal in really putting the pinpoint in, there are opportunities available for all employees at Deloitte and programs and growth opportunities, but understanding the nuance and the challenges that a military spouse experiences as it relates to their career timeline and journey, I think is really important, whether that be through senior leadership, understanding and stewardship and sponsorship, or through having a peer that's also living through a deployment or about to do a permanent change of station or relocation, or trying to navigate childcare, or being the primary caregiver for your family while your spouse is, meeting their service requirements. I think that it's important for leadership to be aware of that. And a key theme of a lot of the conversations today have been around understanding and awareness. And for Deloitte, with its commitment towards learning and growth and opportunities to become a leader, especially investing in long-term career opportunities, as one of our first panels talked about, I think it is really important, and it all comes down to having leadership awareness and access to the opportunities that are available, and that comes through strong community engagement, communication, and creating a space to have those conversations.
Yeah, and with that in mind, my wife's actually at Deloitte University this week. So she's out of town for the whole week at DU. So good stuff. So Meg, with FISERV, with that in mind, how does FISERV and or you help build a culture for military spouses to indeed thrive at FISERV?
Okay, so I'll follow Meredith's lead and ask for some audience participation, but I won't make people stand up. Okay, so how many of you can raise your hand if you currently work in corporate or have ever worked in corporate? Okay, so you know that with these types of programs, a lot of times it's dependent on either having executive sponsors or being able to convince someone to be an executive sponsor. And so I was looking at some statistics earlier today, and I think one of the challenges that we're facing, as we were listening to everyone speak today, is that my stats may or may not be right because I was just Googling it before, okay? But around 6% of the population are veterans. So, as compared to 1980 when 18% of the US population were veterans. And the point I'm trying to make there is there are fewer and fewer people that are directly connected to other people that have served in the military, and even if they know them, like people who know my husband and I now as Army veterans, they don't know us when we were actually serving and what that meant for us. So like, it's a lot of it is about creating like programming and events to pass that knowledge along, if you will. So like one of my favorite things that we do, we started, I think in 2021, each year we do a military child panel. So grown-up military children talk about their experiences of growing up and moving around and whatever that looked like for them. And the first one we did, I think we had one of an Army vet. He was there and he had his daughter come. She was a second lieutenant or first lieutenant, and he like almost started crying on a work call because I don't think he'd ever heard her tell him how like the missed birthdays, the things like that, that's not what they remember. They remember the times that they were there and like the things that they did do. So, and a lot of it's about educating it. Even those of us who work in this space, sometimes I'm reminded of the things that military spouses have to do in order to make sure that their family is taken care of. And so like, for example, we put it in our military, I don't know what it's called now, our hiring manager training for being military friendly, that kind of thing. And we talk about military spouses and make sure that people know what it is and what it means. And the last thing I'll say is like a lot of times when we look at ERGs, we would do things just for the military community, and we've really looked at expanding that. So we want to make sure that we're inviting all employee resource group members or all associates at FISERV to these events so that they can learn, about what it means to serve for Memorial Day, Military Spouse Appreciation Day, what does that mean, that kind of thing. So we want to spread the wealth, spread the knowledge, if you will.
Very nice. Eileen, in regards to this one, for like promising solution and innovative models you're seeing from the private sector that can transition or also help military spouses.
Well, I'm encouraged to see how many people are from corporate or headquarter locations here too, because I think, we talk about childcare as a national crisis, and it is, but it will have local and specific solutions that make the biggest difference. So as we talk about ideas and innovative things that we're seeing across all different groups, it's important to know that this might take a little bit of experimentation. You might need to do some surveys to understand from your employees and your population what actually is going to move the needle for them individually. It might be different in locations, might be different by job type. So some really innovative things we've seen have been things like increasing flexibility, and we talked a bit about that as well, but having some flexible work arrangements for parents overall, but especially military spouse parents, so that they have the ability to either shift change or have staggered hour starts or have the ability to remote work on occasion. There are lots of roles where those different combinations can be helpful. Being able to have employer-sponsored or on-site childcare, that's a big ask. I know it's a big ask, but it makes a huge difference, and we do find that when we look at examples where there has been some on-site childcare that's been done either in conjunction with states or just with employers, there's a tremendous amount of impact, and they find that there's 400% and 500% returns on the amount invested in terms of retention, in terms of employee satisfaction, and in terms of being seen as a local employer of choice. So being able to pull some of the best and brightest and most capable employees for that stable workforce we talked about before. So I think that as you think about some of these innovative models, the public-private partnerships like the TriShare initiative that Michigan is doing, where the state funds a third of the child care costs, the employer funds a third of the child care costs, and then the parents fund the other third of the child care costs. When you think about Kentucky with their matching programs, where every dollar that the employer spends, Kentucky will come into certain environments where there's child care deserts to actually match those funds to help support these working parents. Those things can be deployed and expanded upon in a way that's really quite exciting and can be innovative in different environments.
Yeah, one of our offices in McLean has got a daycare center on the first floor, and it's like, man, my kids are too old for that. I wish I would have had that.
And I'm so jealous, right? Because I feel like it would have been a material, right? It would have been a material way to feel comfortable and feel that stability, especially in your kind of early and mid-tenure career when things do get shaken. And
pop downstairs and have lunch or whatever, yeah.
And we do find that with parents that are leaving the workforce, the Chamber Foundation did a survey, and we found that about 60% of them cite childcare concerns as a big driver with why they're leaving the workforce, and most of them do not want to. So that's something to keep in mind as well. There's a huge population that's exiting that would like to be recaptured, that would like to be staying or have that continuity, and this benefit can serve them as well as the rest of your employee base.
Awesome, thank you. And Kadish, with the strategies at Deloitte, what have you found to be most effective in helping military spouses overcome either the transition gaps, the career gaps, and or just growing into leadership roles? And I think one thing that was neat that you shared backstage was as they're PCSing and trying to figure out the next steps, Deloitte kind of assigns them an unofficial buddy, to help them through that transition of going from installation A to installation B, but all that's still part of professional development. So what all can you share from what Deloitte is implementing?
Absolutely. I'll say, touching on our conversation backstage around having the support system behind you, I think Deloitte has, in my experience, created a culture that understands, or at least attempts to understand, the military connected experience, and through that having honest and transparent conversations around, creating a safe space to have those conversations around, this is what's happening. I still want to show up to work. I still want to do my job. I still want to learn. I still want to have a career. Is there a way for me to transition offices? Is there a way for me to find, a way for me to deliver in another space just so that I can stay connected? And I think through that, to the point around, what strategies Deloitte has in particular, and what strategies any organization can have to cultivate and retain military spouse talent in particular, is aligned to the key theme, I think, of all of our conversations today around creating flexibility. Deloitte's work environment is hybrid, and I think through that creates the space for me as an active duty military spouse to know that as I'm planning my career timeline in alignment with my spouses, that I can have those honest conversations around this hybrid workforce that Deloitte has, and how I can navigate that through leadership, sponsorship, mentorship of those that have experienced before me, through communities like our Military Spouse Initiative and our Veteran and Military Spouse and Allies community, all of which have people who are working to learn, are working to be aware, or are living it themselves. And all that to say, going back to the flexibility option that all of our leaders here today have been talking about. And I think another piece to that is, opportunities like today, Deloitte puts a huge emphasis on moments that matter. And through our military connected communities, being able to meet at, as you mentioned, Deloitte University, Deloitte's conference spaces where we can connect and have conversations and assess what the military spouse and military connected experience is like. I think, thinking back to all of the other panels, the conversation is around being aware, but I think that a word I've been using today is dynamic. The military spouse experience and the military connected experience is a dynamic one and ever changing, and I think the beauty and the skill that a military spouse brings to the workforce is being able to operate in uncertainty and being agile and being flexible. And through all of that, having spaces where we can have those conversations, talk through those gaps, find opportunities to fill those gaps, and have leadership buy-in and investment in what those solutions are, because I think the solution is unique to the military spouse, but being able to say, as an organization, we support what the military spouse brings and how we can solve, whatever gap that is to ensure, a long-term career path, which I think is the higher level theme of today.
I like what you said backstage. I'm a bad parroter, but it was something to the effect of, I'm just moving to another town. I'm still going to be able to deliver the same product just from a different place. And that's phenomenal. I think back to the transparency and communication. So yeah, good deal. So again, my role at Booz Allen is to recruit and also to retain, but I think for Meg, the biggest part for retention, it's great to recruit military affiliated talent in an organization, but what are some things, be it with BRGs and employee resource groups, employee communities, things of that nature, what is Fiserv doing and how critical do you see that as a retention tool?
Yeah, I think a lot of our focus on retention we do through like our military ERG and some of our other ERGs as well. You know, this is not directly spouse related, but we have a sponsorship program for folks that are going out on military leave, and so we aren't super prescriptive about it, but we have had managers and sponsors provide support to the family who's back at home. We kind of provide here's some ideas of things that you can do just as a way to keep in touch with those who are out on military leave, because managers are often reticent to do that whenever people are out on leave because they're technically not supposed to be contacting them about work and that kind of thing. You know, and so, I mean, I think like part of it too is we're inundated with information. So I think what Kadish said about asking what is available, and like if you're a military spouse and going to work for corporate, I would if they have a military group, I would get connected with them, see what's possible, because you may be trying to sift through the corporate website to find out, you know, what military spouse support we have and that kind of thing. It may not be there, it may be getting updated. So like, I just say like the best thing to do is ask for that support, make it known that you're a military spouse and you want to be involved. And if you're moving or having something like that happen, even if the company doesn't have like an obvious program for that, again, like I would ask, because, you know, not even just military related, we've had people leave because maybe they're single parents or things like that, because I'll be honest, we're back in the office. We don't have a lot of that flexibility right now, and so hopefully we'll get there again. But I think we're not the only company that's in that position. We've got a lot of people who've pulled people back in the office, but you know, they didn't ask before they left, and they could have asked their manager to see what was possible, and it still may not have been possible, but I mean, I would say ask. The worst thing that people can do is tell you no. I mean, I guess in that instance, you should still have like a plan, like if it's not gonna work out, well, I have this offer to go work somewhere else, but I think, you know, we're trying to, when you're talking about like culture and ERGs and stuff like that, a lot of it's just trying to cut through the noise of all the information that's coming at you and trying to get the information to the people who need it. One of the things that we do is like an onboarding session, and our legal department said we can't only offer it to people who've identified as being military affiliated, so I send it out to everyone who's a new hire, and just let them know that it's to learn about like our FISERV Salutes program and the things that we provide, so that hopefully we can connect with those new hires and let them know that we're there as a resource.
Good deal. I think yesterday during the Amplify event, we were saying how it should be a forethought versus an afterthought. So that's fantastic. Deal. All right, last round of questions. Eileen, in regards to kind of forward action and cultural change, if you could encourage a major shift in how employers or policymakers approach childcare for military families, what would be one thing or two things that you would suggest or recommend that we collectively come together and try to change?
Yeah. I don't like to follow the rules. I'm going to give you like 2 or 3 things.
Go for it.
Okay.
Let's go. We have 10 minutes and 4 seconds. Let's go.
I won't take that long. I'll be brief. I think the most important thing, and you've heard it in different ways from all of us, is the importance of communication and of having a little bit of flexibility. But that comes from instilling a culture of wanting to get the best from your employees and wanting to make sure that your employees feel comfortable coming and communicating back to their managers, their HR departments, making sure that there are a series of different avenues that people can speak through. And that's not necessarily a child care aspect, but it absolutely will help the families that are managing through complex situations like childcare, like elder care, like military deployments or moves or any other shift of which we all have many in our lives. So making sure that you create that sense of communication, that sense of openness, and that sense of we will find ways within reason to try to flex for you because we value you as part of our workforce and we value you as propelling forward our company or the military to greater heights. So I think that's my number one thing. My number two thing is what I mentioned before, which is that this is childcare is a national crisis, but it's going to have local solutions. Be willing to reach out. Be willing to look for folks that can put you in touch with people who have done different experiments or had different pilot models that have worked that can help you understand why those examples might have worked. So, and I'm raising my hand, I will be that friend, right? The Chamber of Commerce Foundation does a lot of childcare work, and we are happy to connect in with any of you about ideas that we might have seen work in different situations that might be relevant for each of you. You don't have to be an expert, you just have to know somebody who is, and we can help be that. One of the things we're trying to create is a solutions bank of all of these different innovative ideas that we are hearing about or we're helping implement or we're taking to different communities or different companies so that we can help explain why some of them work in different situations. So we're piloting that process right now and trying to scale it up. So if you have any questions about that too, I'm happy to talk.
I like it. Thank you. And Kadish, in regards to, it's obviously fantastic, to get that hire. We all want, hire the military spouse. But what are some kind of long-term strategies and opportunities you could see as far as like creating career pathways, not just, kind of ringing the bell that we hired somebody. Let's get past that. What are, the tomorrow and the future in the next month and next, 10 years going to look like? What can we do for military spouses in that capacity?
Absolutely. I feel like my word today is flexibility, and I don't want to keep repeating it, but I think that's the biggest emphasis here is that I'm willing to show up to work in person, remote, whatever. As a military spouse and a driven person with goals, as most military spouses are, we know historically military spouses are very high achieving, highly educated, highly qualified, and it just comes down to the opportunities that are made available. And as we've learned today, they're all here, but it comes down to the gap around tailored communication. And I think you touched on that piece around in terms of creating that long-term career path. I know something I've really enjoyed working on while being at Deloitte is creating a really tailored space for military spouses to connect, but also to receive targeted communication on how Deloitte supports military spouses through the broader policies, programs, and opportunities that Deloitte offers to all of their employees. And I think through that, having a strategic place where military spouses can come together and have those conversations with the support of leaders who may or may not be military spouses, but we're lucky at Deloitte to have a lot of leaders who are also military spouses that can speak from their own personal experience and share that, and have brought in other leaders who empathize and are aware of the unique needs and barriers or challenges that military spouses may face during their long-term career. I'll say that going back to the retention piece, building a culture of, trust and transparency and strategic communication across, the broader enterprise and at Deloitte, creating a safe space to have conversations and a culture of belonging is really important. I'll just add that, I think after hearing from a lot of HR executives and organizations that prioritize the military spouse experience, putting people first is always important. And I think for the military spouse, knowing that there are leaders out there are organizations out there, create a space for you to, as Meg mentioned, ask. Find those resources, advocate for creating one-stop shops for all of the things I need to know as it relates to military spouse experience at Deloitte or at any of the organizations that we've heard from today. I think that's the biggest piece, at least for me in my military journey, and supporting my peers and the other military spouses in my network of just making sure that they know the resources that are available and the opportunities that are out there and the leaders that are there to support in an honest and transparent way of, this is the reality and we're all here to serve, and we have a call to want to make sure that our service member wants to stay in the military or support our family and make sure our family unit stays together, or make sure that I can achieve my career goals and support my family financially. So I think all of that to say is that we're all people first, and focusing on the people always, I think helps maintain that goal of retaining a military spouse and ultimately helping the retention and readiness of our military force.
Perfect, thank you. And last but not least, to close us out and bring us home, Meg, in regards to advice you could offer companies or people leaders in regards to how we can better understand and meet the evolving needs of the military spouse community.
I think you should always make it about the business case. So figuring out, I was listening to the CHROs earlier, which by the way, that was really cool that they were all CHROs and military spouses. And wanting to get some statistics that they have, maybe hiring our heroes could help us out with that. But, or I'll ask them myself. But, I think it's that's the way we always approach this, because ultimately we work for businesses, and they care about making money and moving it forward. So it can't be like, we want to hire military spouses and give them these special like waivers and things like that because it's a nice thing to do. We need to be able to say, we want to do this because they're going to perform better, and that's what this is going to mean for the business, and like build it that way. Otherwise, it can change with whoever is new in leadership, whoever is new in talent acquisition, things like that. You want to build it out. And I will say, so like the cool thing at Fiserv is like our corporate social responsibility team grew out of our military and veteran affairs. So like it didn't exist before that. We had our military team, and then we stood up what we called corporate citizenship. And so like a lot of the policies that we have, like gender neutral paid parental leave, like our military leave policy, which is pretty expansive, and a few other things came out of the military program, and many of our ERGs then grew out of that. And so a lot of times I like to say there are times whenever the military community needs something specific, but pretty much everyone would like to have flexibility to work. We all, not all, but a lot of people need to be in a dual income household. And so there are movements that are happening. So if it has to be a case that's made for military only, that is one thing. But my advice would be, if you can make the case for why this is important for like your employed population at large, then that will stick even better, and having like focus sessions and doing things like that so that you can have the kind of like the data and maybe some data from other companies who have done it. Like that's the way to build that out and show how it's going to be beneficial to your corporation and the business.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Well, with that in mind, Meg, Kadish, Eileen, thank you very much for the insights you provided for us this afternoon, and I thank you all for your attention. Thank you.
Presenting this year's Bonnie Amos Impact Award for Lifetime Achievement. Please welcome, from Hiring Our Heroes, Elena Robbins, and welcome back, Elizabeth O'Brien.
We're back, and I feel like the entire 2 days has just been building to this moment. I was telling Elena backstage, I'm so thrilled that we can present this award together because a lifetime ago we lived in Germany together, and she babysat my kids, and I feel like it's so indicative of the tribes that we build in the Army and our connectiveness and how we make sure those that we care about continue to thrive in this great tribe that we call the military life. And so I am unbelievably humbled to have the opportunity to present the Bonnie Amos Impact Award for Lifetime Achievement. For those of you that don't know, we really view Bonnie Amos as a trailblazing advocate and changemaker for military families. She was a spouse to the Commandant of the Marine Corps, and truly when I pushed into this space, we brought her alongside HOH to be an ambassador, and she was powerful, and she was graceful, and she was one of the most fierce advocates that I have ever met for our military-connected families. I have never seen, I've seen a couple of people. She could get us to an outcome like nobody's business. She would come over here, Elena. She would take your arm, whatever she wanted, whoever she was talking to, and she would say, "No, you don't really want to do that, do you?" And she would just, with the most grace and magic, make things happen because she cared so deeply for our military-connected community. And I have had the great privilege of being around a lot of fierce advocates. If you look back at the history of those that have received the Bonnie Amos Award for Lifetime Achievement, from Sheila Casey to Mrs. Milley to Mrs. Goldfein, these are all people who have continued to give over and over again. But this year's recipient has done all of those things, and she is somebody, since I moved into this space, I will say quite candidly, has had just as much impact, certainly in my life, as Mrs. Bonnie Amos did. And the most common theme and thread that I have felt is the warmth and the caring and the kindness and the humbleness that is so rare these days. And it has and always will remain team before self. How can I give? How can I support? How can I build connections to leave the Army and our military families in a better place than I found it? And certainly when we called to share with her that she was going to be the recipient of this year's award, her first reaction was, oh, not me, I can't accept this award, right? This belongs to everybody else. But sometimes we have to remind those that do, with the greatest of humbleness, that we need them to accept these awards because they show the world what right looks like, what it means to give without expectation, what it means to love the person that is to your left and right, and to create solutions and to care without expectation of it ever being returned. And so this year's recipient has taught me that over and over again and reminded it to me. And certainly as we navigated 20 plus years of our nation's longest wars, conflicts, I had the opportunity to just watch her rise and find ways to continue to serve families. Right? Is it during the height of deployments? Is it creating pathways to economic opportunities? Is it so-called retirement and going right back out to work and continuing to give over and over again? But what I've also remained rooted in is the individual that's going to be this year's Bonnie Amos Impact Award recipient is her deep love not only for our community, but her family. And how the ability to serve through her family and to love her family has transcended across the military-connected community over and over again. And so from one military spouse to another, to all the military spouses across the globe, she continues to inspire me when I'm tired, when I don't want to get out of bed. I just think about what she would do, and then I carry on. And so I'll never be able to adequately thank her enough for the model that she sets and the standard that she creates every single day. So to share more about her incredible journey, let's go to the videotape.
Holly is determined. When she has an idea, Holly's going to make sure that she can take it as far as she can. And that's what I love about her, right? Because she's a change maker.
She's compassionate and not in a pity way. She just leads with her heart, and her heart is full of compassion.
I describe Holly Daly as one of the most sincere, kind, loving humans that I've ever come across.
If I had to describe Holly in one word, it's impactful. Not asking for any limelight, not asking to be recognized, but simply doing it because she's committed to the community and she wants to make a difference.
She's the most humble person in the world. My brother says you've married an archangel. You know, Holly's an angel in our family. That's what they call her. Holly was my best friend's older sister, so I've known her since I was just a little child. And I used to tell her, I'm going to marry you someday. I actually joined the Army when I came home on a PCS move. I hadn't seen her in years, and I fell in love. And a few weeks later, we were married. And we're still happily married after 32 years today. Within the first week of moving to Fort Riley, Kansas, she goes down to ACS and she started volunteering to help spouses write resumes. And she found her passion in that for the very first week that she was an Army spouse. She fell in love with the Army culture and the Army life and the bonding with our families.
She is so genuine, she is so empathetic, but she truly, truly desires to make all military families' quality of life as best as it possibly can be.
She lives that saying of, if you do what you love, then you never work a day in your life. I think she's really doing what she loves, and it shows every time I see her out there interacting with military families.
Holly has a passion and commitment for the military community that is second to none, and we've been so thankful for all of her work over the years.
Later years, when I started deploying quite a bit, I mean, we were separated for almost 10 years as a result of overseas deployments, and she took it to heart to take care of those soldiers and families in our absence, in the unit's absence, especially during combat.
She really lifted up Army spouses in a way that had not been done before. And by that I mean she watched out for everyone. There were certainly senior spouses, we paid an awful lot of attention to them, but she wanted to go all the way down to the junior enlisted level. What was going on with them? What did they need? How could we raise that up and make sure that everyone had an equal chance to thrive in this military life that we have?
When we retired from the military, she said, I'm not done helping soldiers and families. And she wanted to get back into that business, and that's why she serves as the Family Readiness Director for the association today. That's where she finds passion, and I know that's what she wants to do in her heart and soul for the rest of her life.
She found a great pathway to go to work at AUSA, where she continues to serve our military families and our Army families every single day. So all those years of volunteering, of giving, of service, they were all building to where she is today.
We have a great working connection with the military family programs at AUSA, and every time we need something, she's there, and she sees the value in what we do with our organization and how that gives military spouses a platform to connect at military balls, to connect informal events. She shows military spouses how to stride through this life with grace and how to just be there to support.
She's been a constant presence for Hiring Our Heroes since I've been here, always advocating for military spouses and their families, working hard to help them find meaningful employment opportunities, and working behind the scenes to get the job done.
Holly, I love you so much. I am so proud of you, girlfriend. And I think that this award is at exactly the right place at the right time for the best person ever. Holly, you're the best.
From one military spouse to another military spouse, congratulations. On behalf of spouses all over the globe, thank you for doing what you do every single day. Congratulations.
Huge congratulations. This is more than deserved. I love you, military spouses love you, and we are just so thankful for everything that you do for our community.
Holly, I would say congratulations. I know that you're very humble and that you don't want awards, but you truly deserve this. I've watched you serve our soldiers and their families for 3 decades, and you're still doing it today. You're my best friend, and I love you.
Holly, congratulations on being the recipient of the Hiring Our Heroes 2025 Bonnie Amos Lifetime Achievement Award.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Holly Daly.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you, Liz. I adore you. Thank you for being you. Thank you for being a military spouse. Also, thank you to Eric and Alana. Thank you, and special thank you to Brian and Bonnie and T-Mobile. Hiring Our Heroes is a great foundation and a driving force for military spouse employment, which improves our overall quality of life. And we truly appreciate your continuous dedication. So as you heard, it takes a lot to surprise me, but when Liz called me, I was in tears, and I said, I can't take this award because I don't feel I deserve it. It belongs to our military spouses. So I am humbled and honored to accept this award for all of you, our military spouses. I do not know exactly the journey that all of you are working on, but I can relate. I can relate because of the soldier for life sitting at table number 4. He gave me the honor of being an Army spouse of 33 years. So Dan and I grew up in a small town in Northeast Pennsylvania. I was one of 6 children, and he was one of 4. Our families were both poor monetarily, but very rich in love. My mother served in the Army before marrying my father, and she also worked in a mill, and my father was a laborer. I knew from a young age that hard work, helping others, and good morals were my foundation. Dan lived down the street from us, and he was already a part of our family because he was my brother's best friend, as you heard on the video. But he was that kid that always picked on me and said, "I'm gonna marry you when I grow up." I'd be like, okay. I remember the day he joined the Army because it was the day my father went to heaven. So imagine my surprise when years later, a familiar knock came on our family's door. I opened it, and there stood what was once this young boy, now because of the Army, a man, and a hot one too. He had just got back from Desert Storm and was PCSing to Fort Riley and stopped at our home on the way. And so when I opened that door, I gave him a big hug, and my world stood still. I knew I would follow this soldier anywhere at any time. And even though he sat me down and said, "This life isn't easy," I didn't care. You know, I saw the birds chirping, the hearts going, the stars sparkling, and firecrackers going. I would follow him, and I did. As far as my career, I had already worked my way up from a bank filing checks to a bank officer and had opened my own business. So Army life and continuing building my career was not going to be a problem. So I thought. As soon as I got to Fort Riley, what I didn't know then and what I know today was how difficult it was to be an Army spouse, especially from the employment perspective. Here I was in a new town. I didn't know anyone, and they didn't know me. I didn't have a network at all. I didn't even know where to start, but I had the U.S. Army green stamp everywhere I went. You know what I mean by having a fit soldier and short haircut walking with you. They all knew I was an Army spouse. Immediately, I realized that everything I built that I left behind at my first duty station was at my hometown. So while looking for that perfect job to be a long-term career, my husband said, "You should go up and volunteer at ACS." And I said to him, "What's an ACS?" So after he explained that to me also, I took my husband's advice and humbled myself as a successful businesswoman and started volunteering there. Eventually, I got connected to my first job through their family employment program. Today, we know that as ERP. I was truly grateful for my job, but it didn't meet my expectations of picking up where I left off in Pennsylvania, nor did it meet my expectations of climbing the corporate ladder. So while I was adjusting to being a new Army spouse and in my new job, I found great passion in the Army family. My husband always taught me that his soldiers are our children and their spouses are our families. And that's how we lived our life over the years. ACS, volunteering, and my Army family helped me grow my skill sets and connections, and this helped me substantially because we had to be a dual income family. In the earlier days, those of you who would remember, Whopper Wednesdays was Burger King on post, and you got Whoppers for $1 and you could refill your drinks, and that was our date night. I knew everywhere we moved I needed a job, and then I started realizing that not all those would end up fitting into my line of work, nor my original plan. What I eventually learned was that I had to reevaluate my own expectations. The importance for me now was to find a job that would flex my schedule. Flex it so I could be there to raise our son, to continue being there for our Army families as they were for me. But I needed to find an organization that truly understood our lifestyle, right? And if I didn't find a job, I reminded myself that I had the most important one already. My #1 job, first and foremost, what I signed up to do was to take care of my soldier. Because without him and his career, I wouldn't be that military spouse looking for a job. So like military families, our journey continued with many, many PCS moves and many, many different jobs for me. All those years of working those jobs outside my field and volunteering in our church and our son's activities, helping my Army family and building SFRGs and formal programs, because we didn't have those back then, helping spouses find jobs, teaching spouses how to speak English so they could find jobs, all helped me be stronger and resilient and proved it's worthwhile when the wartime deployments came. Those were tough times, especially when our soldiers paid the ultimate sacrifice and our spouses came together in the most critical time to provide necessary support. I was part of that support building care teams and fully knowing that it could be my soldier next. This went on for a decade and deployments after deployments, and I would often say to my husband, "Why do you have to go again?" And he would say, "If not me, then who?" Then one day my husband called from Iraq during his 5th tour in combat and he said, "Honey, I got good news. I got selected to be the sergeant major for TRADOC." I was so excited for him and I congratulated him. And I said, "Okay, when are you coming home?" He said, "Not for another 6 months. I got to finish this fight, but I need you to pack up the family and move to Fort Eustis, Virginia." I said, "Where's that?" He said, "I got to go, honey. Google it. I love you." Sound familiar? So with the help of my Army family, I immediately gave my notice at my job again, transferred our son out of school and sports, packed up, and moved us and the animals across the country to Fort Eustis. While there, I continued volunteering and job hunting, which took a lot longer this time. And eventually, I accepted a lateral paying job. But the difference this time was my director understood our lifestyle and supported us big time. The support they gave me was worth the weight in gold. Later on then, I got a call from the Chief of Staff of the United States Army, General Odierno, because my husband was competing for the SMA position. General Odierno knew the value of family, the value of the spouse, and that's why he called me. He said, "We would like to select your husband to be the next SMA, but I want your permission first." Of course, excitingly, I said yes. And then the next thing you knew, we were like the Beverly Hillbillies from Pennsylvania once again, loading up the truck and moving to DC. And then one more time, I quit my job, and my expectations were to start job hunting again. But then I realized I wanted to focus on volunteering to help our families. I didn't want to let them down. This would be my job. So we made huge financial decisions to be a single income family so that I could do this. And we stopped going out to eat, which didn't really matter because Army events were our date nights anyway. And we continued our family tradition nights on Fridays. What I then realized from all these years on our journey was that God, the Army, my Army family, and our communities and previous employers were preparing me with the skills, the self-worth, the tools and understanding of the value of a military spouse and the value of volunteering, how to advocate for our spouses and how to create jobs to meet our lifestyle if one did not exist, and to learn how the systems work in order to make change, to pivot where there's roadblocks, and to educate on the military lifestyle. My job was to tell my story and to tell your stories. So my responsibility was, and still today, is to communicate the hardships our spouses face, especially when it comes to the employment perspective. I realized I was a voice to communicate that military spouses, they have valuable skills. They are loyal and they are dedicated, and they acquired this from the lifestyle that they serve. The skills I learned throughout my journey led me to various boards and councils with school districts, MSOs and VSOs, the Army, DOD, and the White House, and my current job as the Family Readiness Director at the Association of the United States Army, an organization that truly understands and supports military life. And today, I have the distinct opportunity not only to stay connected to our spouses, but to continue to teach about our lifestyle, to build spouse skills, and to do this through ODYD, our chapters, and a lot of our education forums. Thank you again to Hiring Our Heroes for giving all of us the opportunity to collaborate, recruit, retain these highly qualified spouses, all of us. You have created a platform that will continue to make a difference. Thank you to our military services and all our organizations that support military spouses, and that you continue to give us a voice. Thank you who all participated in the heartfelt video. And mostly, thank you, Dan and Dakota. I love you both. You are the greatest blessing in my life. And thank you for supporting me through all these years and through all my jobs. Throughout this journey, I have learned my purpose, which is to provide a better way of life for the next generation and to help our military families do the same. So God bless each and every one of you. God bless our services and our service members and families, and may God bless America. Happy 250th birthday, Army. Thank you.
Please welcome back, from Hiring Our Heroes, Brian Alvarado.
Good afternoon, everyone. Before we wrap today, I want to leave you with something simple but urgent. What you do next matters. Because everything we've talked about today, from data to pilots, fellowship programs, and flexible hiring, is not theory. It is real, and it is working. And it is waiting on one thing: action. If you're an employer in this room, I'll ask you this: have you created jobs that spouses can keep, not just land? Are you retaining them through every move, every transition, every chapter? Because until the answer is yes, there is still work to do. If you are a policymaker or an advocate, are we designing systems that outlast administrations, programs that scale, and metrics that matter? Because until we embed military spouse employment into our national workforce strategy, we haven't finished the job. And if you are a military spouse, this movement belongs to you. You are not here to be helped. You are here to be hired, to be promoted, to be invested in, and elevated. Because your experience is not a challenge to overcome. It is a competitive edge. Let's stop asking if the time is right, because the time is right now. Let's stop waiting for consensus, for comfort, and for clearance. We have the strategy, we have the partners, and we have the talent. What we need now is the urgency. So go home from this summit, not just inspired, but activated. Be the champion in your company, be the spark in your network, and be the voice that keeps this issue at the forefront until military spouse employment isn't just a conversation, it's the norm. Thank you for showing up. Now go show the world what happens when we stop admiring the problem and start delivering the solution. Thank you.